Hello, everybody. It is Sunday, April 20th, 2024. Welcome to episode 109 of the Old Mage MTG podcast with your hosts, Old Mage Steve and Old Mage Alex. Thank you so much for joining us. It is Easter Sunday, Alex. He's
Happy
up.
Easter.
Our boy has risen. He said he was coming back. It's been a while. I'm not really sure what's taken so long. Starting to get a little bit nervous, wondering where he's at. I heard he was above the clouds. I always thought he was just above the clouds, and I couldn't figure out why it was taking so long to come back. I don't know if you know this, but Jeff Bezos shot Katy Perry up to space recently.
Yeah,
And I was watching intently. I was like, he's got to be up there. They're sending Katy over the clouds. They're going to broadcast it. I'll get to see. Maybe our boy is up there. He
that
wasn't,
makes sense.
I didn't see him anywhere, Alex.
No.
It was scary what I
And they
saw.
didn't spend much time up there looking, did they?
They didn't spend much time. It was weird. The whole thing was weird, but you know, the cameras, they were focused mostly at the earth, but then I looked past and I was like, there's nothing out there, man. It freaked me out. Now I'm really worried. I thought he said he flew up there, he said he was coming back, but now I'm not so sure. I'm not even sure that he rose to begin with. I got all sorts of questions now. But anyways, what are your thoughts, Alex?
I don't think I have any additional thoughts on that.
You have no idea if Jesus is coming back. You have no faith.
None. No idea.
Would you rather talk about Premodern White Weenie?
I think so.
Okay. That's our main topic for today. Premodern White Weenie. But before we get into the deck, I want to ask you to please subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We are Old Mage MTG on YouTube. We used to be Old Mage Magic. That's not right. We used to be Old Men Magic. We rebranded a long time ago. We are now Old Mage MTG on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, on Spotify. You can find us all those places. If you listen to us on Spotify or Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts, you can even rate us. They have a star system. You can give us anywhere from 1 star to 5 stars. How many stars do you think they should give us, Alex?
5.
5 only. We only
Only.
accept 5-star reviews. Please and thank you. Also, if you hear about any cards today that you'd like to add to your collection, please make your next purchase from TCG Player using our affiliate link, which you can find in the episode description below. If you're watching us on YouTube, it'll be right down there somewhere. You just scroll down there, you click the button, you put the cards into your cart, you click the next button, the cards show up at your house. We get like 75 cents, maybe $1.25, depending on how much you spend. We appreciate it. Appreciate every penny. But now onto the main topic of today's episode. This episode is all about a deck that I am working on. I built this deck for very specific reasons. What was it? Back in episode something or other, 103, 104, can't remember, maybe early 100s, we talked about a White Weenie deck that won maybe Worlds, maybe Nationals. I can't remember exactly, but it was a big tournament back in 1998.
Okay.
And it ran Empyrial Armor and some Shadow Creatures. I was inspired by that deck. I wanted to kind of upgrade it for Premodern if I could. So really, I'm playing this deck because I wanted to play one Empyrial Armor, which is this badass enchant creature right here, aka Aura. It has Easter-themed art. We have a Warrior Angel. And it has badass flavor text. An angel appeared in the smoldering skies above the fray, her clothes as flames, her armor as fire. That is the hymn of angel fire. It is 1 colorless, 2 white. Enchanted creature gets +X/+X, where X is equal to the number of cards in your hand. So it's a way to very quickly make one of your white weenies very big. I also wanted to play this card, Alex. Cataclysm. Many people probably know Cataclysm. This is a card from Exodus. It is 2 colorless, 2 white. Sorcery. Each player chooses from the permanents he or she controls an artifact, a creature, and an enchantment, and a land, and sacrifices the rest. So the idea is to get out, a 1 or 2 drop, buff it with Imperial Armor, Cataclysm, blow up just about everything. I keep a creature and an enchantment, which is going to be my buffed White Weenie. Hopefully, those are much bigger than the creature and the enchantment that my opponent keeps. So that was the idea.
Or they
Catechism,
can't block it because of the shadow.
they can't block it because
Yeah.
hopefully it's a shadow creature. Cataclysm's been relegated to the sideboard because I don't play it well and I get myself into trouble too often. This was the dream. Shadow creature, Imperial Armor, Cataclysm. Every time I've done that, Shadow creature, Imperial Armor, Cataclysm, I lose the game. You might ask how. I'm not even sure how it keeps happening, but it did keep happening. So I was like, screw this. Cataclysm's going to the sideboard. Because I still think it's great in some matches. But Imperial Armor is still a 4 of. And I have a current list. Well, this isn't my current list, actually. You'll see the current list towards the end of the episode. But this is a relatively current list. This is a list that I recently played locally. I took this deck to the first Retromancers Premodern Swiss meetup. You might say, what the hell is a Retromancer? Well, it's a really terrible card in the Premodern card pool. But also, it's the name of the Columbus crew here in town in Columbus, Ohio. We are Retromancers. We play Premodern MTG. Are we the Retromancers? Nobody knows. I haven't decided yet. But the logo just says Retromancers, Premodern MTG. We had our first ever Swiss meetup recently. This is the first time I ever played in a Swiss tournament because I was never a tournament player back in the day. Trying to get a little bit better about building competitive decks. The White Weenie is the first thing that I'm starting to work on. And I brought this list with 23 creatures. Go through it real quickly. 1 Exalted Angel, 4 Mother of Runes, 3 Silver Knights, 4 Soltari Foot Soldiers, 4 Soltari Monks, 4 Soltari Priests, 3 Whip Quarters. So I'm leaning heavy into the shadow theme. 1 Sorcery, Battle Screech, 7 Instants, 1 Abeyance, 2 Disenchant, 4 STPs, 6 Enchantments, 1 Aura Silence, 4 Imperial Armors, 1 Worship, not Wonder. I'm getting
Not
better
Wonder.
at that, Alex. I haven't called it Wonder for at least a couple episodes, I think. 23 lands, 2 Core Haven, 1 Plains. This was the sideboard. 1 Abeyance, 1 Abolish, 2 Cataclysm, 2 Disenchant, 4 Orim's Chant, 1 Phyrexian Furnace, 4 Savannah Lands. It was a 4-round Swiss tournament. I went 2-2. So I was 1-2 against Black-White Control. I lost those 2 games essentially to Engineered Plague. After game 1, he boarded in, I think, 4 Engineered Plagues. So he was playing with 4 Engineered Plagues and then a minimum of 1 Enlightened Tutor. He might have had 2 Enlightened Tutors, but he was drawing his Engineered Plagues. And I'm loaded with shadow creatures, right? And there's Soltaris. I have 12 Soltaris in here. Naming Soltaris and then Cleric made the game essentially unwinnable for me. Or naming Soltaris and Rebel to get rid of my whip. Well, actually, the Whip Porters would survive. Naming Soltari and then Cleric, it was game over for me. It was too difficult. I will say I could have boarded better. I didn't bring in my Cataclysms from the sideboard, which actually would have been a good idea in that matchup. Something Ryan from Ohio pointed out to me later on. Simply because the black-white deck it's a controlled deck. It was very mana hungry. He needed a lot of mana to operate. And even when he had the Engineered Plagues out and I just had my hand full of things that I couldn't play out because they were 1 toughness Soltaris that were going to die as soon as they hit the board. Even when that was the case, the game still went on for quite a while. I remember there was one game I was like, maybe I'll deck him because he was drawing more than me. Because I can't remember if he had Phyrexian Arena in there, but he definitely had Skeletal Scry, and so he had card draw.
Okay.
And I was like, maybe I'll deck him. I don't know. I mean, I didn't deck him, but the point is, the game still lasted for a long time, even though I couldn't play my creatures. So if I could have cataclysmed, blown up all the land in his deck, there's a possibility that before he was able to build up enough to really kill me, maybe I would have decked him. I don't know. I didn't think about it because I was like, oh, I'll only get rid of one engineered, or he'll still have one engineered plague. That won't help me. I won't be able to get all the engineered plagues. It was either game 2 or game 3. He had 3 engineered plagues out. So if I could have cataclysmed, I could have wiped 2 of them and then just disenchanted the remaining one. It would have been a good play for multiple reasons. One, because it would have prevented him from building up the critical amounts of massive mana that he needed. And 2, it would have been a good way to deal with his engineered plagues if he got 3 on the board, which he was getting because boarded in 4, and then he had at least 1 Enlightened Tutor. But the takeaway from this game was I'm too I'm just wide open to Engineered Plague. I'm too sensitive to Engineered Plague. I got to make my deck more robust to Engineered Plague. Second match was 5-color Terravore. This was an Oathless Terravore variant. That was quite easy for me. He couldn't establish a threat really before my Horde ran him over. So that was nice because one of the reasons, one of the strengths I thought of this deck would be able to deal with, I thought it'd be pretty good at dealing with creature decks like Terravore that have one large creature threat. Because I run 4 SDPs, I run 3 Whip Quarters, I run 2 Core Havens. I thought that I should be able to deal with one big creature if that was their main win con. So that worked out well. Next match after 2 of Terravore was Chance Encounter Frenetic Freet combo. And actually, let me pull that one up. Chance Encounter Frenetic Freet EDH Rec. I like the EDH Rec at website, Alex, for helping me figure out how combos work. I don't know if you've ever gone to this website before. Pretty helpful. But anyways, this deck was played by some of the kids that came. There were a few younger people who came. They were in the local Magic Club at Ohio State University. And this guy just, I think his buddy just like whipped a deck to him together for him real quick, and he just played it, just kind of as a goof. And I won this match 2-1. The one game I lost to the combo, the Frenetic Freet Chance Encounter combo. Although he could have still killed me with manlands, but he chose not to. He just wasn't attacking on purpose because he wanted to do this instead. So this is when you have Frenetic Freet and Chance Encounter on the battlefield, you can activate the Frenetic Freet's ability, EDH Rec says, an arbitrarily large amount of times by paying a total of 0, because Frenetic Freet has an activated ability that costs 0 to activate. That ability says flip a coin. Target opponent calls heads or tails while coin is in the air. If the flip ends up in your favor, Frenetic Freet phases out. Otherwise, bury Frenetic Freet. Resolve the first Frenetic Freet ability, flipping a coin and either sacrificing Frenetic Freet or causing it to phase out. So if you win the flip, Chance Encounter triggers, putting a luck counter on it. So essentially you activate it some large number of times. If you win the flip, Frenetic Freet phases out, Chance Encounter triggers, putting a luck counter on it. So what happens when Chance Encounter triggers, putting a luck counter on it? Chance Encounter is an enchantment, 2 colors, 2 red. Whenever you win a coin flip, put a luck counter on Chance Encounter. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Chance Encounter has 10 or more luck counters on it, you win the game. The idea is when you win the first coin flip with Frenetic Freet, it phases out, and then all the other activations of its ability, if you lose that flip, it doesn't get exiled, so it phases out. So it's phased out because it's phased out already. You know what I'm saying?
So you have a chance to win
So you just
all
keep
10
flipping.
coin flips.
You just keep flipping, yes, until you win 10 coin flips. Then on your next upkeep, the Chance Encounter triggers, and you win the game. So it's a nice little combo, and it was actually a nice little deck. There's just a lot of efficient, effective, blue and red spells. A lot of
Yeah.
burn, a lot of counter magic, and it allows you to one, pre stall the game until you can get this combo, protect this combo. But even if you never get the combo out, still allows you to run a pretty effective game plan using just your burn and your counter magic to nullify what your opponent is doing while you chip away with main lands in the deck. Pretty nice little deck. And then I went O2 versus Survival Rock. So this was the rock with Survival of the Fittest. This didn't go well for me. Uh, Again, I could have boarded better. I should have brought in Cataclysms. Again, I didn't bring in Cataclysms because he had a lot of creatures out. So just using Cataclysm to keep one creature and forcing him to decide which one he would have kept would have been really great. The games I lost, I wish I had a Wrath of God. If I didn't have a Wrath of God, a Cataclysm still would have worked really well. At the same time, he would have had decided, which of his multiple enchantments he wanted to keep. Most games we played, I think two of the games we played, he had a survival and an engineered plague out. So it would have been good to force him to at least get rid of one of those. I also could have boarded in more graveyard hate. I had more graveyard hate. I didn't bring it in. I should have. That was a silly mistake. That was, that could come in to nullify Squee, nullify Genesis. Both cards that were fueling the survival engine or allowing him to bring cards back that he pitched. Creatures back that he pitched. So it was a rough match for me, but it could have been a lot less rough if I had sideboarded better. I came somewhere in, I think I was in eighth place out of like 13, so somewhere in the middle. 2-2, 2-2, not bad. But I have some takeaways from my first ever Swiss meetup. One, I need to become less vulnerable to engineered plague. That killed me in both the black-white control matchup and in the survival rock matchup. Two, Battle Screech was too slow. I like Battle Screech. I thought, oh, it gives me some more evasion in the form of flying. Something else I could strap an Imperial Armor to, fly over. I also thought, it allows me to block flying creatures that my opponent might have. Or just block anything in general, because I have a lot of shadow and they can't block non-shadow creatures. So sometimes my opponent gets out something bigger that doesn't have trample. I would like a chump blocker. I don't always have chump blockers available. So I was like, I could use this to generate chump blockers. I can use this to generate an evasive creature that I could strap an Imperial Armor to and fly over and do it a lot of damage. There's a lot of
Yeah.
different things like, a lot of different benefits I saw to playing this card. But it's 4 mana. It and that 4 mana puts 2/2 or 2/1/1s with flying into play. And then you can flash it back, but to flash it back, you have to tap 3 untapped white creatures you control. So to flash it back, that means I'm probably not going to be attacking with some shadow creatures, or I'm going to have to tap a whip quarter, which means I can't use its ability to tap a target creature. So
Right. And
or
your
tap.
mothers, you have a lot of utility, tap for utility creatures in here.
I have a lot of tap for utility creatures, so I can't use them for their utility if I'm using them to flashback Battle Screech. I just wasn't getting any use out of it.
It's
It
probably better in a token generating deck.
I have since played against a bird deck that this was much, much better in. So I'm like, Battle Screech, too slow. It's immediately targeted by Pyroclasm. Both times I cast it, immediately Pyroclasm, the 1/1s. Which one of the good things about it generating 1/1s is you can use those 2/1/1s as two of the 3 untapped creatures that you need to tap.
Yeah, true.
But they're immediately getting destroyed. So it was doing nothing for me. I was like, I'll just take that out. And I never cast Worship. Like it just didn't come in handy. So I wasn't sure if it should still be in the main board or maybe just put into the sideboard for matches like Burn. So I was thinking about, sideboard and Worship out.
I don't know enough to like have an opinion on that probably. Like I don't it's above my pay grade,
Hmm.
but my initial instinct is sort of that like you're playing a fairly fast, fairly aggro kind of deck. So maybe I don't know. Yeah, maybe like keep focusing on that. You're hopefully going to kill them quickly enough that the worship won't matter.
Yeah.
But I don't
Or
know.
in decks, I mean that's a good point. Or there are some decks where like I just can't necessarily outrace them, but I can at least put spells in this place that would slow them down instead. And that would give me enough time to chip away with my shadow creatures. So and I think that those type of spells might be better. Something disruptive, like another
Uh-huh.
Aura of Silence, another removal spell, as opposed to
Yeah.
worship. That's kind of the route I'm leaning towards now. But so
How was your land count?
it was fine. I never feel like my mana base is always strong. I also thought I don't know that I need two Core Havens. Core Havens is a card that I put in to deal with the Lone Dreadnought, to deal with the Lone Terravor. Like this will further strengthen my matchup against those decks potentially. It's actually doing nothing for me, surprisingly. It's almost never doing anything for me.
Hmm.
So I think two is definitely too many. I'm not even sure that I want to put any in any longer. Uh, that'll prevent the odd times where I can't play a two drop, a white two drop on turn two. That does happen every once in a while. That kind of feels bad. It's especially annoying too, because like I never want to learn. I never really want to use the Core Haven on turn three, anyways. Know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like I drop a Core Haven on turns one or two. That means I can't play a white spell on turn two. And
And then you have to keep mana open.
and
Use
it
the core haven.
exactly. I have to keep mana open to use the Core Haven. So if I want to play a turn three Imperial Armor, I got to decide, okay, do I not play the
Yeah.
aura that I really want to play on turn three, just so I can keep a Core Haven open to stop what? And so it's like it's not really, it's just mostly slowing down my ability to curve out, not doing much for me in the late game. So many people play some number of wastelands and or some number of Rishodon ports that this is always their target. So like when it is out and I need it,
Hmm.
it just gets destroyed. It's always there. You know, it's there to. There's nothing else in my deck for them to use their wasteland against. It just gets stripped, not stripped, wastelanded. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or it gets ported, or they have a card that I can't target with it, like Blastoderm or something. You know,
Yeah.
so kind of had enough of Core Haven. I'm kind of mad at it, to be honest. But I came home, I licked my wounds. I thought, how do I make this deck better? What does a pre-modern White Weenie player do when faced with these defeats? Well, I took a tactical retreat and I opened up a primer, Alex. I opened up Gary Roth's pre-modern White Weenie primer. Gary Roth was somebody that I heard on an episode of the I've Got Questions podcast, a pre-modern podcast hosted by William Hurst. He was in the episode titled A Pre-Modern Topic Tour with Gary Roth. He talks about a few different things, including his primer on pre-modern White Weenie. So I found it from this podcast. It's available to everybody. Go to the I've Got Questions podcast, a pre-modern podcast hosted by William Hurst. Look in the description. You'll find a link to this very same primer on pre-modern White Weenie. I want to go through it with you today, Alex. We're going to learn from Gary Roth a little bit about how to build a better, more robust, more explosive, more versatile, more dynamic pre-modern White Weenie deck. And I'm going to start with this little bit where he discusses some of the tenets of the White Weenie. These are things we've discussed in previous episodes. White Weenie is an old deck archetype, right?
Heck yeah.
All the way back to the beginning of Magic.
Yeah.
Heralding
One
all the
of
way
the
back to
oldest
Alpha.
deck archetypes, I
One of
would
the
say.
oldest deck archetypes. It's all about finding high power to casting cost creatures to out aggro your opponent, right? Like Savannah Lions. That's the classic
Hmm.
example. A one drop with 2 power. This is better than most 1-drops. Mons Goblin Raiders. Merfolk of the Pearl Trident. Scrib Sprites, that flies, that's pretty sweet, but it's 1 mana for 1/1. What is there a black 1-drop for 1/1 in alpha? I'm just blanking. I don't know if
Put
there
me on
is.
the spot with that one.
I don't know if there is.
The closest I
Red,
can come up with is Drudge Skeleton. That's 2 mana.
it's 2, yeah, and it has regeneration, so it has an ability.
I mean, and Will o' the Wisp is like good, so that doesn't really count.
That is a 1-drop, but it's just a blocker. It has no power, right?
Right. It's
Is it
0
0/1?
1
Yeah.
regenerating, flying.
Yeah. So Savannah Lion is a perfect example. 1-drop, two power. You don't see that often. You did it back in the day. Nowadays,
Uh-huh.
it's chump change. It's child's play. It's nothing. People spit on those cards. They rip them off. They throw them in the toilet. Put them in a blender. But back in the day, it was really something. You could get a 2/1 in red in the form of not Ironclaw Orcs. Ironclaw Orcs?
Yeah, they are. Ironclaw works.
Ironclaw Orcs, right?
There's also a Brass Claw works, which is why I'm confused, but I think
Yes, that's what I was
Ironclaw is
getting
the
confused at.
older one.
That's Fallen Empires, I think.
Yeah,
So it
something
was
even
Ironclaw
worse.
Orcs,
Even worse.
2/1, but those are 2 mana too,
Yeah,
right?
Ironclaw works is 2 mana, it's 2/2.
And it has some other downside, like
It
it
can't
can't
block a
block.
creature with power 2 or greater.
Yeah. So high power to casting cost creatures. Efficient removal. We've talked about this too. Back in the day when we built decks, I was very often spiking white into my deck, throwing in some
Yeah.
dual lands to add white
Once we
just
learned
so
how good Swords to Plowshares was, it was like,
the
and
most
how much you
efficient
need
removal in the game.
disenchant. Sorry.
Yeah, the most efficient removal in the game. STPs, disenchant. Take care of creatures, take care of artifacts and enchantments for 1 and 2 mana. Hard to beat. Couldn't beat it. Anthem effects.
Yep. Crusade.
Can I play Crusade these days?
Are you
I'm not
asking me?
sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not.
No?
I don't think it's not banned in Premodern. We had this discussion actually at the Swiss. Somebody said something about
Ah,
Crusade, and he was like, "Oh, I don't think you can play that." And I was like, "Actually, I don't think it's banned." Uh, but I guess it depends on the play group, whatever the play group decides. For me, it's just a 2 casting cost spell that buffs my creatures.
yeah.
I would play Jihad too. I would play anything. People play Meat Hook Massacre. There's lots of brutality and stuff in Magic. But also, if people don't want to play it, I'm not attached to Crusade. I don't have to play fucking Crusade. Right now, I have a different Anthem spell in my deck. I'll show you what that is later. I have added an Anthem spell. But this is something that is very common. It's a staple of the White Weenie, some sort of Anthem effect, right? Something
Hmm.
that buffs your creatures. And then also White Weenie from the early days, they always had mana disruption. Armageddon being the classic example. But a lot of White Weenie decks of all colors, really, also would frequently run Winter Orb. And in the pre-modern card pool, you also have things like Cataclysm, Rishadan Port, and Wasteland as well. So that's the general structure of a White Weenie deck. High power to casting cost creatures, efficient removal, anthem effects, mana disruption. So generally, if you build a deck with these features, you end up with a scaffold that consists of something like 20 or more creatures, 4 Swords to Plowshares, 2 or more disenchants, 17 to 24 lands. And then you pick your mana denial, your anthem effects, your utility cards, maybe add some additional removal. So that's the scaffolding, but you have a lot of room for customization. And this is a quote from the primer, wherever this is, right here, under deck construction. He says the key is matching the build to the demands of the metagame. That's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm not really a competitive player. We're just starting these monthly Swisses. I'm trying to get more competitive. I'm trying to learn more about the metagame, find out what people are bringing, see how I can combat it. I saw this with Engineered Plague. Now I have to match my Weenie deck to meet the demands of the Engineered Plague. White Weenie's not a deck that can simply overpower most opponents. I'm learning this. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to shadow through. I was still dying.
Mm.
I couldn't kill my opponents fast enough if I'm just shadowing through with 1 or 2 damage. If I could get the Imperial armor out and they didn't have removal for that, then it was game over. But that's not going to happen all the time. Success requires considering the variety of opponents likely to be faced and creating a deck that can be consistently, or and creating a deck that can consistently present a reasonable plan to defeat almost all of them. So I'm trying to make the deck more consistent, more robust. How can it? How can I make a deck that matches up well against most of the things that I'm gonna run into? I mentioned I want to be able to deal with engineered plague, survival of the fittest, combo locks, and big ass creatures. What spells are available to me in White Weenie to do this? Well, let's review some of these cards highlighted in the primer, and we're going to start with the creatures. He mentions 8 core creatures. Those 8 core creatures are Mother of Runes, Savannah Lions, Meddling Mage. You say to me, Steve, that's not a white card, that's white and blue. Well, you'll see in this primer, he talks about the different splashes too that people add to White Weenie. There's a
Yeah,
lot
okay.
of there's a lot of white blue, white red, white green variants. We're not really going to go into those today. Right now, I'm still studying at the Wakefield School. I'm monocolored deck only. I will get into the splashes. I already have some ideas for some splashes. Ryan from Ohio sent me a really interesting idea how to splash blue into this deck, which is very different than some of the white weenie decks that I see other people build. I like it a lot, but all these splash cards we're kind of going to ignore in today's episode. So Meddling Mage, Silver Knight, Soltari Priest, or Soltari Monk. Extremely useful as evasive threats. These are the 2 shadow creatures. They both cost 2 white. They're both 2/1. Soltari Priest is pro red shadow. Soltari Monk is pro black shadow. Whipcorder and Exalted Angel. So these are what he calls the 8 core creatures of Premodern White Weenie. I was running 6 of them at the meetup. I had Mother of Runes, Silver Knight, Soltari Priest, Soltari Monk, Whipcorder, and Exalted Angel all in my deck. I was only running 1 Exalted Angel. I'm still only running 1 Exalted Angel, but sometimes I do wonder if it's a mistake. He refers to it as the battle cruiser of the format, being removal resistant. It's hard to get rid of, hard to outrace, and hard to outclass. Angel often represents inevitability on her own, and her power is the only reason a card of this cost is included. Every time I do get an Exalted Angel on the board and it lasts for at least 1 turn, I win the game.
Mhm.
I've noticed this. This is what happens. But I'm still wary about putting 2 in because I don't like getting mana screwed. I like being able to cast on curve. It is a higher casting cost card. Don't know if I want to put 2 Exalted Angels in the deck. The fact that it has that it is a morph card makes it easier to cast because you can first morph it out and then pay for it to flip. So you really only need 4 to cast it. So something I'm still considering. Those creatures probably most people know. Then he mentions the flex creatures. So this is where you see a lot of the customization in Premodern White Weenie. Which of the flex creatures do you run? He mentions 14 of them. I'm going to go through them focusing just on the mono white ones. So there's Deftblade Elite. He says is an option in fields with many small creatures, especially when blocked by cards like Mom or Crusade.
Fact.
Or backed. Provoke is not effective against mana producers, though. So Deftblade Elite is this card. We talked about it maybe in the Clerics episode, because I think it might be or a Soldier. Soldier. It's probably a Soldier. Soldier's episode. It's a
Hmm.
1-drop. Yeah, it's a Soldier. 1/1, provoke. You can pay 1 colorless, 1 white, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by Deftblade Elite this turn. So provoke says when this attacks, you may have target creature defending player controls untap and block it if able. So you can use this to force a block. You can tap your mom to give it protection from whatever is blocking it, and then something else that you're attacking with can get through. I'm not that concerned about that because most of the damage I get through is from shadow creatures. but it's a decent one drop. I don't see it very often. I don't think it's one of the stronger options that you can play. Devoted Caretaker provides redundancy with Mom, blocks Goblin Lackey well, but is mana intensive. Since it can protect non-creatures, it can allow you to lean more heavily on board controlling artifacts and enchantments. I've considered this, but I'm not going with it for this reason that he states right here. It is mana intensive. I don't know if you remember what Devoted Caretaker is, Alex.
I don't.
I believe it's a cleric. It gives protection from the color of your choice, I think, to
Oh
things.
yeah, okay, I remember this art.
One drop, 1/2. I do like it for that reason. One engineered plague naming clerics isn't going to kill this, and it blocks Goblin Lackey. So those are both very good. But pay 1 white and tap target permanent you control gains protection from instant spells and from sorceries until end of turn. I was wrong. I said protection from color. It's protection from instant spells and from sorceries. I see myself tapping out a lot with this deck. So I don't, and I already have to leave mana open for Whipcord. If I continue running the Core Haven, I have to leave mana open for Core Haven. I don't want to have another card that I have to leave mana open for. So I haven't been running the Devoted Caretaker, but it is a nice little card. Nova Cleric, potentially devastating against decks like Enchantress and Oath, but is often too slow to answer the namesake card and blocks Goblin Lackey well. It's very good to point out these cards that can block Goblin Lackey. I haven't been thinking about it much because I just haven't run into goblins at any of our meetups. I know some people play them, and I'm going to run into eventually. So probably after I do, my sideboard is going to change immediately, and it's going to be full of Devoted Caretakers and Nova Clerics just so I can block Goblin Lackey. But I'm not thinking about all that much right now. One white, 1/2, very mana hungry. Two colorless, pay 2 colorless and 1 white, tap, sacrifice Nova Cleric to destroy all enchantments. Very strong. I only see this as a sideboard card against Enchantress, really. Haven't gone with the
It's
cleric.
tough for you with your Imperial armor too, you know.
Very, very much so. Yeah. I don't want to wipe my own armor off the board. That'd be terrible. I'd be desperate. I'd have to be desperate to do that.
Yeah.
Remosian Sergeant, he mentions, and also Weathered Wayfarer. These are two that I have actually considered. So Remosian Sergeant, mostly to tutor up my Whipcorder. And we saw some decks running Remosian Sergeant when we were talking about Rebels.
Yeah.
And I made note of the fact that some non-Rebel decks really just ran Remosium Sergeant in what were otherwise more classic White Weenie decks, not necessarily Rebel-focused decks, mainly to search up that Whipcord. And I like that. 1 colorless, 1/1, pay 3, tap, search your library for a Rebel card with converted mana cost 2 or less, put that card into play, then shuffle your library. If
Yeah.
this was a 1/2 like the last two creatures we talked about, it would be in my deck in a heartbeat because it could block Goblin Lackey, and I can use it to get the Whipcorder, but it's not. That's not the world we live in. Haven't been playing it. Weathered Wayfarer. I said I considered this card. I haven't seriously considered it because I don't necessarily have the kind of deck that would warrant running Weathered Wayfarer, but I have considered adding more utility lands to this deck, making it more land focus, and running Weathered Wayfarer, but I haven't yet. Weathered Wayfarer is 1 colorless, 1/1, Nomad Cleric. Pay 1 white, tap, search your library for a land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Play this ability only if an opponent controls more lands than you. So I've thought about going the Rishadan Port route.
Uh-huh.
Some of the White Weenie decks that you see from back in the Mercadian Masks era will run Rishadan Ports, and they're really good against, you know, any deck running more than one color. One of the main benefits of running a monocolored deck is Your mana base is really simple and you rarely get mana screwed. Your opponents are far more likely to be mana screwed or not be able to play things out on curve than you are. And if you add something to your deck to disrupt their land base, that makes that difference even more pronounced. Like if you can put Rhetorician on ports in your deck and they need 2 blue or 1 blue and you're just porting their, you know, land that produces blue every turn, you really slow them down. You really disrupt their game plan. I haven't gone that route yet. I'm trying to be a little bit faster with this White Weenie deck. This seems like it would be a better plan for more of a prison focused White Weenie deck or a more control focused White Weenie deck. Mine is, has some control elements, has some disruption, has some removal, but I'm trying to go more the aggro route, so it's not really something I've done with my particular build. But I like this as an option, something I would
I'm
like to
start
explore.
I'm starting to see a pattern though of creatures with activation costs, and I'm seeing how you might have some issues with trying to decide which utility creatures to put in without, getting it to the point where you have all these creatures that are mana hungry for their abilities.
It becomes too much. This is why I've stuck. Right now, I only have one creature that I need to feed a white into to activate its ability,
Uh,
Whipcorder. And yes, for the reason you said, I'm afraid to add too many because at least for the first 4 turns, I want to be curving out creatures. I don't want to be
right. Yeah.
necessarily feeding all my mana into activating the abilities of creatures I've dropped on turns 1 and 2. I want to be dropping a third creature on turn 3, or even better yet, dropping an Imperial Armor on one of my creatures that I dropped turns 1 or 2. So yeah, I'm sticking with the Whipcorder right now. It seems like the strongest. Although the others have their place depending on what kind of deck you're running. Other flex creatures, Steadfast Guard, strong against stasis. Don't really run into that often. This is a rebel that has vigilance. True Believer stops an odd cross section of niche effects, most importantly, Oath of Druids. That said, it can be a lightning rod for removal. This is a perfect description because I had True Believer in early versions of this deck and I put it in to combat Oath. I don't know if you remember True Believer, Alex.
Yeah, a little bit. Is that the triangle guy?
It's a triangle guy, and when he's in play, he's a 2/2 for 2 white. When he's in play, you can't be the target of spells or abilities. Oath says target player. So when True Believer is out, you can't be targeted by Oath of Druids. So Oath of your opponent, run an Oath, can't activate Oath of Druids. Oath of Druids says during each player's upkeep, if that player controls fewer creatures than target opponent, right? So it was there to neutralize Oath, and I wasn't running into any Oath of Druids deck locally. Even the one Terravore deck that I have run into didn't play Oath of Druids. But he says it can stop an odd cross section of niche effects. I played against a discard deck that was running Ravenous Rats, and I put True Believer in, so the Ravenous Rats couldn't target me to make me discard a card.
Oh,
That was actually very helpful. Uh, I played a Doomsday deck. So because you can't be targeted when you have a True Believer out, the Doomsday deck, and there are different styles of Doomsday decks. I don't know how they all work, but the one I was playing against, the win con was Ebony Charm. And in order to drain your life with Ebony Charm in the Doomsday deck, you have to be targeted. This is the only win con in the deck. So with the True Believer out, I couldn't be targeted. So all this to say, uh, this is exactly my experience with True Believer. It stops an odd cross section of niche effects. I brought it in for Oath of Druids, and then it won me a game against Doomsday, and it helped win me games against discard deck because I couldn't be targeted. I'm not playing it any longer because it is a lightning rod for removal. It rarely stays in play long enough for me to actually get any benefit out of it. So while it can win me the occasional game, Most of the time, it just gets knocked off the board. White Knight, strong against Suicide Black, decent against Elves and Goblins. I just don't have the space, I think, for White Knight. There's too many other things I'd rather run. I'd rather choose some utility creature. Paladin and Vec. This is the one colorless, two white. I believe it's also 2/2 creature, but it costs 3 mana. One colorless and two white. I used to have this in the sideboard, but then I was like, oh, my entire sideboard is just full of things to deal with red or additional creatures with protection from red. I don't need that much. Paladin and Vec also has first strike. First strike, pro red, pro black, 2/2. So I'm not bothering with this right now. Maybe if everybody in the Retromancers start playing aggressive black and red decks, he'll make it back into the sideboard, but I'd just rather do other things in my 3-drop spot. And then two more Sultaris, Sultari Champion and Sultari Visionary. Both were in the initial versions of the Shadow White Weenie deck I'm playing. Because I was like, I'm going to put all the shadow creatures in there. But I took them out for the reason that is stated right here in the primer. Sultari Champion is slow. Sultari Visionary is slow. They were both too slow. Visionary, at one point I had in the sideboard. I don't think I'm going to even run him in the sideboard any longer to bring it in against enchantment heavy decks. I mean, the enchantment that I most really want to get rid of is Engineered Plague, and as soon as it hits the board, it's going to die to a plague if they've named Sultari. So those are the flex creatures. Which of those flex creatures am I running right now? None of them. None of them. Not a single damn one, Alex. Used to run True Believer. Used to have Sultari and Visionary actually in the main deck as well. They've been relegated not even to my sideboard. They've been relegated to the bin. That's not true. I didn't throw them out. They've been relegated to the box that sits in the closet. Then he goes on to the non-creature spells, starting with the removal spells. STP and Disenchant, those are obvious. Let's have a look at some of the others that I'm not familiar with. Radiance Judgment. Do you know that one, Alex?
Sounds familiar, but I can't remember.
Gary says it's a specialized answer to big creatures with cycling.
I
Cycling
don't
to
know.
head.
Let's see it maybe.
With cycling to hedge. From Urza's Legacy. Okay. I recognize the art. 2 colors, 1 white. Instant. Destroy target creature with power 4 or greater.
Ah,
You
okay.
can cycle it for 2. So it's not bad. Parallax Wave. This is an enchantment. Can temporarily remove opposing threats, clear blockers to push damage, or protect your own creatures. Can also combat with enchantment removal to exile opposing creatures permanently. You play some tricks where you hold priority with the wave. We have to get into the wave decks, Alex. Parallax Replenish,
Uh,
Parallax Wave, Parallax Tide, Replenish. We have to do it at some point. I'm especially interested in learning about how they first functioned when they were printed initially versus how they function now. I think there have been some power level erratas. Holy smokes, this is a $30 card now. I should have bought them back in 2003.
mm,
I do like this card. You know, it's in the combo deck, Parallax Replenish. But I also looked back at some decks that won some tournaments around the time Nemesis was first printed, and you did see it just in White Weenie decks, just for creature removal, even if just temporary, just for a few turns to be able to nullify some of your opponent's creatures, or just to phase them off of the board so you can attack through them and finish the game. It is quite a good spell, and it's forecasting cost, but it's strong enough to warrant running this as a forecasting cost spell, even if you're not doing all the crazy things that the opalescence and replenish decks do with it. Curse Scroll. I've definitely thought about running this. It is mana intensive though. It provides a good tool to control creatures and reach to close the game. So those are the two things that I most liked about it. A way to do repetitive damage to any small creatures that they bring out, especially because I have a lot of shadow and I can't block. So if I have something like Curse Scroll, just blow them up. And reach to close the game. I haven't been running it because I'm an Imperial Armor focused deck. Curse Scroll works best in decks where you empty your hand, right? So it there's conflict there between Curse Scroll and Imperial Armor. So those are the non-creature removal spells. These are the removal spells that he mentioned that are just in white or artifact. Pump spells. These are global pump or buff effects. As mentioned earlier, they're a mainstay of the White Weenie. They provide haste damage, help to win combat with opposing creatures, and mitigate some removal, e.g., burn spells and engineered plague. This is exactly why I've started going with some pump spells, Alex. Engineered plague. It was the bane of my existence in the first monthly Swiss. Next time I'm coming. I'm coming prepared with some buff. Crusade would be the ideal to run for the mana cost, but I'm not playing it. I'm currently playing Glorious Anthem, which I don't know if you know Glorious Anthem. I bought a playset of Glorious Anthems the other day. It is 3 mana. So it's taking up some space there in the Imperial Armor slot. Do I play Glorious Anthem or do I play Imperial Armor on turn 3? All creatures you control get +1/+1.
Mhm.
So it's not just white creatures, but I only have white creatures in the deck so far. And it's just my creatures. So it's a pretty good substitute, I think, for Crusade. Glorious Anthem is the one I'm going with. I can also go with Shared Triumph. That's mentioned as a better anthem. That's only 2 mana. If you have a tribal theme, so you have to state a creature type, and it gives +1/+1 to all creatures of that type. I believe that's how Shared Anthem works. I didn't go that.
Shared Triumph.
Yeah, Shared Triumph. I said Shared Anthem, and I even typed Shared Anthem. I didn't go that route because I have Soltaris in my deck. I have clerics in my deck. I have humans in the deck. I have soldiers in the deck. There's some overlap
Yeah.
between my creatures. Many of my creatures are more than one of those things, but I'd rather just give +1/+1 to everything, not have to
This
deal
is my
with.
birds deck.
Okay, that's perfect if everything in the deck is birds. Yeah,
Yeah. I still don't know how many I should have though. I think I only have one in because I have some other Anthem effect enchantments in there too.
you have that Ares, something Aerie or
Yeah, the
Ares
one where
something.
like if the birds die, I pumps the other birds.
Mm-hmm. Divine Sacrament, less efficient than Crusade, can be double strength in a long game, so it gives +2/+2 if you have Threshold, I believe. I'm just going Glorious Anthem. It seems like it fits right there in the middle as far as mana cost and effect is concerned. That's what I'm going with right now. And then he moves on to auras. Auras are generally too situational and risky to use as they risk severe tempo loss and card disadvantage against creature removal. The ones worth considering need to mitigate those downsides or generate enough immediate impact to be worth the risk. Imperial Armor's in this list, Alex. Yes, I have been 2 for 1, but it's also been a game ender. So, in my opinion, I think it's been worth it. It's also just very fun to play. People don't expect to see it. Uh, and like I said, it's won me games. There are definitely decks that simply can't deal with an Imperial Armor on a 2/1 creature turn 3 coming at them for 5 or 6 damage.
Hmm.
Unblockable. There's definitely decks that can't deal with it. Were you going to say something before I move on to the
Yeah,
mana
but
denial?
I mean, I don't know if it's a worthwhile question, but I was wondering about you were talking about one of the other cards we just looked at being a target for removal. Um, I'm blanking now if it was
Was it a creature?
I think so.
I don't remember. Oh, True Believer.
Yeah.
Lightning Rod for removal. True
Yeah.
Believer.
Um like I don't know, have you thought about like kind of using that to your advantage, like clearing the way for the creature you want to put the Imperial armor on? It slows you
Yes,
down obviously because now you're not, you know,
exactly.
yeah. Um
That's I've thought that, and I'm like, oh, play the True Believer out first. It eats the bolt. Then play the Soltari. Then play Imperial Armor. But yeah, it slows me down a turn. I get the large creature out that much slower, one turn slower. I also have one less card in my hand now, which makes Imperial Armor that less good.
sure, that's true too, yeah.
And some of my shadow already has pro red built in, so they're like immune to the bolts.
Yeah, it's better to have them with an unused card in their hand than to use it on one of your cards, you know.
Yeah. And they'll still eat, if I have a True Believer out, it'll still eat an STP or something. So it's like, yeah, I guess here's what I want to say. It's it's only been a it is a lightning rod for removal, but mostly against burn, and I think I'm okay with burn.
Okay.
And I have enough pro red in my deck that I can Imperial Armor those creatures and they won't be burned out. Or it eats removal against Oath decks that also run STPs. And in that case, if they STP my True Believer, yes, that's an STP that they don't have available for the Imperial Armored creature out, but then they're still activating Oath and coming at me with like a 12/12 or something. So I'm still kind of fucked.
Yeah.
This is how I'm thinking about it. So I don't know. Yes, I did
Yeah,
think. I'm like, yeah, it'll eat removal, but
that's
it,
why I'm not sure, but yeah, it seems
yeah.
like an inefficient way to like,
Yes,
yeah, go about that. Yeah.
yes, the inefficiency. I had the thought too, but I'm like, it's just too inefficient. It's just not doing enough for me. So the mana denial, we'll just talk about this pretty quickly. This is a route, like I said, I've thought about going this route many times with like Withered Wayfarer and Rishadan Ports, but I haven't. I think it just, if I add in these mana denial cards, Dust Bowls, Wasteland, Rishadan Ports, it just, the lands, they negatively affect my ability to curve out the creatures what I want. Yes, it's crippling against some decks, but it's also powerless against some of the top decks, like Gush decks, for instance. You know, any Gush deck, Stifle Knot you're playing. They don't care, really, if you tap down one of their lands with a Rishadan Port. There's not really anything for you to wasteland. Dust Bowl ain't going to do shit to them, you know? So it's just not good enough against the best decks, I don't think. Go through the list. Dust Bowl, Wasteland, Rishadan Port, you don't know what they do. Armageddon. I'm not playing an Armageddon. At least I haven't been playing an Armageddon. That might be a mistake. Armageddon, he describes it as the classic haymaker, usually often seals the win for whoever is ahead on board. The deck's lower curve also gives it an easier recovery. Armageddon is best against control decks, certain combo decks. It can sometimes work against mid-range decks. I like that he says this. It can sometimes work against mid-range decks. I think I've been playing a lot of mid-range decks when I've been Cataclysm or Armageddon off. And those just aren't the best decks to play these things against. Maybe I should just hold it in my hand instead. Focus on its use against control decks and combo decks. Cataclysm can be devastating to a broad section of decks. The Rock, which I said I should have boarded it in against. I learned this after the fact. Enchantress, I knew that. Blue White Control, kind of knew that too, but I wasn't thinking about it against blue black or white black control. I don't know why. Should have. Control decks. It's good. The
I'm
versatility is
looking at
off.
that and it's making me worried about my artifact deck because it mentions mud in there, and I'm thinking, yeah, Cataclysm would suck.
I'm keeping it in to destroy almost all of your artifacts for when you finally bring that mud deck out, Alex.
Mm.
Versatility is offset by being relatively weaker against control and combo when compared to Armageddon. It can also wipe out the White Weenie deck's own creatures. That is true. And breaking symmetry favors having larger threats, e.g. Exalted Angel auras. That is true. That's what I wanted to do with it. Yes, it destroys my creatures too, but it has a symmetrical effect on me and my opponent. Hopefully, if I have an Imperial Armored creature, I'm in a better place than them with whatever creature they decide to keep. Winter Orb. I just haven't gone the Orb route. I just don't think it's good enough against the best decks, which can often run on us, low land count. So I haven't really been going with much mana denial. He mentions the tutor package. I am considering a tutor in the sideboard. I've had it there before. I didn't have it in the version. I don't think I had it in the version that I brought to the meetup. I did not. I've brought it in historically when I'm playing against red, and it's just to help me find the worship
Okay.
because that's just a lock against a lot of burn decks. I say a lot of burn decks. It's pretty much win the game if you can just get a worship and a pro red creature out. I like it to help me find my auras and my anthems and my graveyard hate. Cards that are important for me in any matchup where people are playing Engineered Plague and matchups like the Rock, where they often bring in Engineered Plague and often have things in their graveyard that I want to get rid of. I can use it to tutor up great graveyard hate. But I like the Enlightened Tutor package more in the 5-color White Weenie decks. We've talked about them very briefly. Haven't really dissected how many of them are built. Haven't really looked into the best ones. I just know that like a year or so ago we saw, I think there was a 5-color White Weenie that won the European Premodern Championship. And I was like, oh, I really like this idea. What they usually do is they run an Enlightened Tutor package, and the deck, it's a 5-color deck, but it's mostly White Weenie core, and then they just bring in like one of each of the best enchantments in each color. So you'll see them with like Enlightened Tutors and then like one Rancor, one Engineered Plague, one of some other shit, some shit in blue, Alex, some shit in red, whatever is good in those colors. And then like some artifact, Winter Orb
Some
or Phyrexian,
artifact.
something that you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Enlightened Tutor can get. So you can run the best enchantments in each color, throw in the best artifact, tutor them up with your Enlightened Tutor. I like the Enlightened Tutor as an include a lot more in those 5-color decks than I do for myself who's running a monocolored deck. And then miscellaneous. He talks about some blue cards. Not going to discuss those right now, but the white cards and the artifacts he mentioned are Phyrexian Furnace, Reverent Mantra, and Worship. So the
What's
Furnace.
that mantra do?
Funny you should ask, Alex. I was going to focus on that one. I was going to talk about that one. Let's talk about the Furnace first. The
Okay.
Furnace, I want to mention that because I had that in the sideboard of the deck I brought to the first monthly Swiss.
Yeah.
I boarded it in frequently. I always got utility enough from it. Always got utility from it. It was always good, often enough that I want to run it in the main board now. I feel like this is just one 4-round tournament. Maybe I'm going overboard, but I'm like, why don't I always just put a Phyrexian Furnace in main board? It's just 1 mana to cast, and worst case scenario, if it's not doing anything for you, you pay 1 more and you sack it and you draw a card. So it's a cycle. If it's doing nothing for you, you can essentially, it's like cycling a card. Pay 2 to
Uh-huh.
draw another card. It just comes in handy so often.
So what's the stance on when to use this versus Tormod's Crypt if you're not using both? Is it just because you want that card draw possibly? Or
Yeah.
okay.
Tormod's Crypt, I like it. I like Tormod's Crypt better against things that can move really fast and pull a whole bunch of stuff out of their graveyard at once. I think I like it better against like
Buried
Replenish,
alive scenario.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
But for most decks, Phyrexian Furnace seems fine. Like just being able to get one a turn pretty much does what you need it to do. I'm trying to think about all the times that it came in handy, like the black white control matchup. That was my first matchup in the Swiss. He ran cards like Skeletal Scrying, right? This is a black card draw. It's an Ice Age card, I think. No, Odyssey card. Damn it. Black X instant. As an additional cost to play Skeletal Scrying, remove X cards in your graveyard from the game. You draw X cards and lose X life. So this is something these decks usually play like a little bit later, once their hand size has dwindled down. They want to build it back up. I mean, if you just use a furnace to just get rid of one card from their graveyard each game,
Yeah.
the scrying is not going to do much for them later in the game.
Yeah, I'm thinking more about the furnace now, and I do like that ability to continually like use it to restrict their graveyard from ever growing.
Yeah.
Like if you tried to use Tormod's Crypt on someone, they have five cards
Yes.
in their graveyard. In response, they could skeletal scrying.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean, and still get their cards.
Mm-hmm.
With the Phyrexian Furnace, you stay ahead of it, keep them from ever building up enough cards in their graveyard to do anything with it. So that's good.
The blue-red Chance Encounter Frenetic Freak combo deck that I played against, it was also like just a general. It was that combo plus like I'll call it blue-red good stuff. Ran this card, which a lot of people started playing
Yeah,
more
I like this
often
card.
after LobsterCon. Flash of Insight. X, one colorless, one blue instant. Look at the top X cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library. It has flashback. One colorless, one blue. Remove X blue cards in your graveyard from the game. So I knew he was running Flash of Insight. I had my Furnace out. Every turn, I'm just taking whatever blue card is in his deck. I mean, sorry, taking whatever blue card is in his graveyard. I'm removing it. So it's pretty much nullifying the flashback ability of his Flash of Insights in his deck. They're just not there to remove from the game.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So it just comes in handy there. Black White Control also ran Eternal Dragon. That's that Plane Cycler.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So he was using this to build up his mana base. Plane Cycle for 2. Pay 3 colorless, 2 white, return Eternal Dragon from your graveyard to your hand. Play this ability only during your upkeep. Okay, fine. Plane Cycle Eternal Dragon on turn 2 or turn 3 to go get a plane. I'm furnacing it. Good luck seeing it. You're not going to see it late game when you need it as a finisher, you know?
Yep.
So there's like a lot of things I wasn't even thinking of, and it just kept coming in handy. And then like the rock, playing survival rock, there's, Squee, of course. Squee's not going to be coming back to your hand at the beginning of your upkeep if I got rid of it with my furnace. Uh, the rock often plays Genesis. Let's take any of the creatures from this cycle, the same cycle that Wonder's in. The creatures that sit in your
Anger.
graveyard. Genesis, 4 colorless, 1 green, 4/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, if it's in your graveyard, you may pay 2 colorless, 1 green. If you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. The rock deck that I was playing made very good use of this. If I just had a furnace to get rid of it, that game would have went way different. So it just comes in handy all the time. Terravor, eat a land every turn.
Yeah, yeah.
I can even eat the lands in my graveyard if they're thermocarcing them or whatever. It came in handy in that match. It comes in handy all the time, Alex. And in the rare instance where it doesn't, I'll just pay 1, sack it, draw a card. Now, Reverent Mantra. I have a Reverent Mantra in my shopping cart because I like this idea too. Mantra. I'm saying mantra.
That's yeah.
It's fine.
One of those that I'll do the same thing with. I'll like pronounce it both ways alternately sometimes.
This is a pitch card from Mercadian Mass. 3 colorless, 1 white. You may remove a white card in your hand from the game instead of paying Reverent Mantra's mana cost. All creatures gain protection from the color of your choice until end of turn.
I've definitely seen this before. I recognize the Rebecca Guai art.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I feel like, yeah, I just like looked at it and I was like, this is kind of cool and I like it, but it's not good enough to use.
I like it. I
But
haven't used it. I don't own one, but I'm thinking about putting it in the Battle Screech position.
I do like it for the pitch effect at instant speed, though. That could be, a game-changing combat trick. So,
It could be a game-changing combat trick. It makes me a little more comfortable in curving out creatures turns 1, 2, and 3 and not having to worry so much about a pyroclasm coming from my opponent because I can just pitch a card and save them all from a pyroclasm. So it makes me a little more comfortable and emptying my hand, which is something I want to do with an aggro White Weenie deck. I also like the fact, I didn't think about this until I read it somewhere. It comes in handy potentially against Dreadnought. All creatures gain protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. It doesn't say all your creatures. It's
right.
all creatures.
Yeah. And in fact, I was just looking at it on Gatherer
Has it
to
been
try to check
errated?
out some comments, and someone else mentions effective hoser for Enchantress decks that rely on auras.
Oh yeah. Well, wait. Let me think of what, like what?
I'm not sure what he's referring to,
Okay.
but whatever Enchantress decks that rely on auras.
Because I would see, I don't think people do this all that much any longer now that there's so much land destruction at the top tables. But older versions of pre-modern Enchantress that I saw often ran Wild Growth or whatever the pre-modern
Oh,
variant
okay.
of is of that. What I'm talking about? Is it Fertile Growth or Fertile Ground? Maybe it was like a slightly better Wild Growth,
Okay.
but that's a land enchantment to
Right.
generate more mana.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they have any creatures that are enchanted, you can use this, cast cast this, give them protection from some color, then you lose the auras. I like it as something that I could do at instant speed to prevent a Dreadnought player from targeting Dreadnought with Vision Charm.
Uh-huh.
Give it Pro Blue. I didn't think about that until I read it. And I really want to find some things that I can do against the Dreadnought player on their turn. I need more instant abilities. Because yes, Swords to Plowshares is an instant. Yes, Disenchant is an instant, but I still feel like I need more instants. And I need things that I can also, this is especially important, do to them when I'm tapped out. Because I want to be able to load up, double up on spells targeting their Dreadnought or disrupting their Dreadnought combo. Because the clock is so short once they get the Dreadnought out. And they have counter magic. So I want to be able to do things on their turn to be able
Yeah,
to
you need to be able
untap.
to do it like at the optimal time so that
Yeah.
they can't counter it. Yeah.
I want to have the ability to do something on their turn, to then untap on my turn and do something again. And then also to be able to do something even when I'm tapped out because of all the counter magic they have. I feel like I need that. So I like it. I like it as a combat trick. I like it for the other reasons that I just mentioned. Haven't actually played it yet though, but I think I feel strong. I feel strong. Here's where I read the Phyrexian Dreadnought thing. Right here in Gary Roth's primer.
Okay.
It adds some interesting use cases, e.g., protecting and opposing Phyrexian Dreadnought from Vision Charm.
Like I was starting to say before, I always like seeing cards that give color protection getting some love. Because I always look at them and end up not using them a lot or trying to, and they're kind of like, eh. But yeah, maybe I'll try messing around with that. It might be kind of what I'm looking for.
Lands and mana. White Weenie's mana demands are to reliably produce double white on turn 2. So that's exactly, I mean, that's really what I care most about. I don't even love the fact that the two core havens I'm running occasionally prevent me from doing that. So I'm not really running these lands, but I'll just go through them quickly. He mentions Kyotoran Outpost, which in pre-modern White Weenie just seems way too slow. I don't really ever see anybody playing it. I want to play it, but I have not been playing it. I thought about playing it when I was like, I need some chump blockers. But then most of the big creatures decks that I am most worried about, they have tramplers. So like generating a 1/1
Yeah.
chump just isn't going to do much for me, and it's slow. It's too slow for the format, I think. You mentioned rainbow lands like City of Brass, Gemstone Mine, Uncover Paradise, just not something I need at the moment, including the layer lands. Mox Diamond, I'm going to be doing that. I don't need that. I think it's nice if you're playing blue-white. It does give you the option to play a turn 1 Meddling Mage. And then utility lands that produce colorless mana, Dust Bowl, Mishra's Factory, Rishadan Port, Wasteland. Unless I completely change the style of my deck and go Rishadan Port with a Wayfarer, I'm not going to play any of these. Although I was thinking, should I play one or two Mishra's Factories?
Well, I was going to ask you what you would put in if you took out the core havens.
Planes.
Just
But maybe two Mishra's Factories instead,
yeah,
actually.
maybe. Yeah.
It could help me against opposing wraths, which I
It's
have
less
faced.
mana than the core haven, and it's less mana than the not so good white man land, which I was also going to ask about.
Hmm.
Uh, so at least you could do something with the factories for 1 mana. I don't know.
It could help me against opposing Wrath of God, which I have faced, and they have been, I mean, they have hurt playing some blue-white control. I've been Wrath, and
Mhm.
it would be nice to still have at least one creature on the board in the form of a Mishra's Factory if needed. Likewise, it can help against Pyroclasms, which is, or sometimes it can be damaging. Don't want to empty my hand too much. Don't want to lose 3 creatures to Pyroclasm. Pyroclasm can't be casted instant speed. It's not an instant. So, the Mishra's Factory could help there. Mishra's Factory could even help against goblins, which I'm just not facing much locally, but I could. If I know I'm playing a goblins deck, I can just cast. I can just start. I can start if I'm on the play. That means I can't play my own 1-drop, but I can just play a Mishra's Factory turn 1. Then they play Goblin Lackey turn 1. Then they pass back to me. Then I play my planes. I can play a 1-drop on turn 2, and my Mishra's Factory is sitting there as a blocker. So maybe I'll play Mishra's Factory, but that's the only land from this list I'm really considering. The only problem is I will need to buy winter factories for the aesthetic, and I wasn't planning on buying any winter's factories because they're the most expensive. But I can't play a factory in a white weenie deck that isn't a winter factory.
That does make sense.
So tough. So at a minimum, there's no factories going in here until I get winter factories. Artifact, enchantment, creature removal in the sideboard. So he now moves to the sideboard. Disenchant or Seal of Cleansing. I got a couple disenchants in the sideboard. Those are pretty obvious. Let's talk about some other spells in this list because I'm not familiar with all of them. Aura Blast. Aura Blast, I think, is just
I like that card. I know that card.
it just removes enchantments, right? Maybe for 1 or 2.
I forget the specifics now that you're saying it.
I know it
I
destroys
ordered some of
enchantments.
these
Just
though.
yeah, I have
Well, you
some
draw
too.
a card, it's a
That's what it
cantrip.
is.
Yeah.
We covered this when we covered every pre-modern cantrip.
Yeah.
1 white, one colorless, instant, destroy target enchantment, draw a card.
I haven't
Like it.
tried using it yet, but yeah, I ordered a couple. I thought it'd be
Neither
fun.
have I, because I always just have disenchants instead. But it's like it's good.
Yeah.
Good.
With as many enchantments as you see, flying around in pre-modern.
The others I really don't know. Clear.
I don't know that card.
Clear is from Urza's Saga. 1 colorless, 1 white, instant, destroy target enchantment. So you can cycle it.
Okay.
That's decent.
Fair.
Yeah. Demystify. Demystify is from Onslaught. 1 white, I like that. Instant, destroy target enchantment.
I like that a lot.
I like that too.
What the
One
heck?
mana. Nobody ever plays it. Monk Realist. So this is
I know that card, yeah.
a disenchant on a stick or enchantment removal on a stick. I can't remember.
Just enchantment, I think.
Just enchantment. Yeah, when Monk Realist comes into play, destroy target enchantment.
Yeah.
One white, one colorless,
And I think is it a cleric?
1/1. It is a cleric
Yeah, yeah. That's why I remember. That's why I looked it up, I think.
in the clerics episode. And then Ray Revelation. Oh, I punched the microphone. That's obviously great, but it needs a green to flash it back, I believe.
Oh, okay.
And I won't be doing that because I'm a student of the Wakefield School at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, one white, one colorless, destroy target enchantment, flashback for green. That's great if you're doing the white green variant. Abolish. This is something that I wonder if I should be playing more of, especially for Stifle Knot. I've mentioned that with uh, Dreadnought to combat Dreadnought because they have so much counter magic, including counter magic that they can pitch cards to, including, counter magic they don't even need open mana to play. I want to be able to double up on destructive spells. So I want to have the option to potentially play some pitch spells to counter their pitch spells.
Hmm.
And Abolish gives me that ability. Abolish, he says, Abolish provides mono white builds with a strong tool against deck that leverage mana bottlenecks like Stasis, Ponza Oath, and Stifle Knot. It's also a strong tool to go toe to toe with decks like Stifle Knot, for instance, that have their own pitch spells. Abolish is, I think it's normally,
It's through white, white one
yeah,
normally.
what?
What I like about this is you can discard a planes and
Yes,
mid to late game in your white weenie deck,
you don't
planes
want
might
it.
just be dead cards in your hand.
Exactly. It's so much better. I like it when I first saw it. I was like, "Damn, this isn't even pitch a white spell. It's pitch a plains."
Yeah.
You may discard a plains from your hand instead of paying Abolish's mana cost, destroy target artifact or enchantment. It's from
And if you're
Prophecy.
like, I don't know if you'd want to be running this if you're also running Armageddon, but
Yes.
you could get some of the Armageddon action in your deck by playing this if you don't want to play Armageddon. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, you're using your own lands, permanents as resources to
Yeah.
sacrifice. You're just doing it from your hand instead of in play.
And I like, one of the decks that Armageddon is worst against, I think, would be Stifle Knot, because they really only need a couple mana to operate, and
Ah, yeah,
they're also a gush deck. So this is a perfect thing to swap. If you run our main board Armageddon, this is a perfect thing to swap
that makes sense. Yeah,
for Armageddon if you're facing Stifle Knot, I think.
yeah.
So I like this card a lot. I've never used it, but I like it a lot. And then Devout
Well,
Witness.
prophecy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Devout Witness is a card that I think definitely saw a lot of play in its time, like in the block. It is
Familiar with
still
that one.
it is still quite good. Mercadian Mass, 2 colorless, 1 white, 2/2. Creature Spell Shaper. Pay 1 colorless, 1 white, tap, discard a card from your hand, destroy target artifact or enchantment. So it's very good, but it is slow. It's 3 to
Yeah.
cast, and then you gotta wait till the next turn to
And
be
you got
able
to
to
pay
tap
mana
it.
and discard
And
a
you pay mana.
card.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I don't know.
I think it's probably better in, like, it seems like it'd be awesome maybe in draft. It's probably better, probably decent in its block,
Yeah.
but it doesn't see a lot of play today. It's too slow. So Abolish, like I said, that's the one that's a special interest to me because I want some pitch cards in the deck to deal with counter magic. Uh,
Here. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of you.
Art of
You-
Silence,
I was trying to remember Reprisal when you were talking about that card earlier that was 3 mana that destroys a 4 power creature.
and it's a lot like Reprisal.
Yeah.
Reprisal is only 2 mana, right?
Yeah.
Does Reprisal only destroy attacking creatures?
No, target creature with power
Okay.
4 or greater.
Okay, there you go. Aura of Silence. Really like this one too. I run one. I wonder sometimes if I should run more than one. Maybe I just keep the others in the sideboard. Effective lock piece against decks like Stifle Knot and Enchantress in addition to remove. Problem is, it is 3 mana, so it doesn't come out into turn 3. Often bad things have already started to happen, but turn 3 is still early enough that this can actually be quite helpful. Creature removal for the sideboard. Creature removal in the sideboard options. Parallax Wave. We talked about that one already. Uh, Last Breath. An option against small utility creatures. Gain life by targeting your own creature in response to removal is occasionally relevant. Gaining life by targeting your own creature. So Last Breath, I think this is a card that like functions like an STP but puts a 1/1 flyer in its place. I wrote last words.
No, this one gives them 4 life.
Okay, maybe I was thinking about Afterlife.
I know what you're talking about. I know the card you're talking about. Creates a spirit token.
Yeah, is it called Afterlife?
I can't remember.
Last Breath. One colorless, one white instant. Remove target creature with power 2 or less from the game. Okay, its controller gains 4 life. Eh.
So I guess this is like if you want a fifth or sixth STP.
I'd rather go with limited creature removal that was limited to removing higher power creatures
Yeah,
as
I
opposed to
feel the
this.
same way. Yeah, go with the reprisal or the what was the one we talked about earlier? I can't
I
remember.
forgot already.
Yeah, but it was like reprisal.
It was a lot like Reprisal. So there's Reprisal, and
You
then he
also have
also,
Retribution of the Meek as a multi-targeter.
yeah, that's 4 mana though, right?
Yeah, I think it's
That's
white 3.
the only problem. And then they mentioned Cataclysm and Wrath of God. We all know what those do. Other disruption. There's a
Oh,
lot here.
Retribution is white 2. Sorry.
Okay. There's a lot here in the other disruption section. I'm just going to focus on the white and the artifact cards. Tormod's Crypt, the most powerful graveyard denial effect against combo decks. Costs 0 to cast. Abeyance and Orange Chant can disrupt combo decks like Stiflenaut, Frantic Storm, and Enchantress. They can also force a spell through counter magic. This is the route that I'm going.
Uh-huh.
This is the other disruption that I'm putting into my deck. I haven't had a chance to see how well it's working for me yet because I haven't brought versions of the deck to many meetups yet, running the Orange Chant or more than one Abeyance. So we'll see how that goes. But I think this is a pretty good strategy, especially against Stiflenaut and Enchantress, to at least slow them down, hopefully enough that you can chip in enough times to get them to 0. Phyrexian Furnace, I already talked up the Furnace. I'm now in love with the Furnace. I'm main decking the Furnace. And then
That was
Sable's
good
Web.
feedback to have from you to like that it's useful in all kinds of different situations.
It has been my competitive play has been limited, as has yours. I'm also pretty limited. Most of the time we just play against each other. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, just bringing it to a meetup, it's like, man, this is helping me against decks I didn't even think about. So Sable's Web, a good way to disrupt mainlands and opposing Rishanon ports and Dust Bowls if you're not running them. I'm running Core Haven. I'm not loving it. I'm thinking about replacing them with planes and going Sable's Web.
I like it. And you draw a card when you cast it. It's only 2 mana, so like what's the harm in putting it down early and just seeing if it helps you?
My thoughts, those are my thoughts about Phyrexian Furnace too. And those are my
Yeah.
exact thoughts about Sable's Web. I'm thinking about mainboard this gosh darn Sable's Web.
I like that it gives you the card up front too, so you don't even have to,
Yeah.
sack it later on.
It's basically cycle and get this sick ass effect.
Yeah, true. It's like, yeah, cycling with a permanent effect after. I've been
Basically.
looking at this card for a long time and I keep meaning to buy it, and I should because it's probably gonna like go up in price and I'm gonna get screwed.
It already did. It started to spike a little bit. Did it come back down?
Not more than $10, is it? Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Rats.
We had an awesome listener. I remembered it spiked because when this happened, we were talking about it on one of the episodes, and I was like, damn it. And an awesome listener sent me a copy,
Oh,
sent me an
yeah, I remember
email,
that now.
and I got to connect with the guy again. I lost track of him. He was like an old school player from Seattle, and I really liked following him because he shared some of my interests, Magic the Gathering cards and Pendleton flannels. He seemed to have a lot of sick ass Pendleton flannel shirts. Uh, but he sent me a
Sick
message.
ass flannels.
He was like, "Hey, I got a signed Sables Web. I'll send it to you. You want it?" I was like, "Yes." Now I have a signed Sables Web. Pretty psyched about it. But I kind of lost track of him when I stopped posting on Twitter.
Hmm.
I don't know if he also migrated to any other sites. I'll have to find out. But anywho, yes, it's over $10 now. Very strong card. So that's the other disruption. I'm really high right now on main board Phyrexian Furnace and potentially a main board Sabos Web. Then he moves to uh, anti-red. So in the sideboard option, anti-red, what can you run anti-red?
Does he have a section for every color, or is he just really worried about red?
Focuses on red, really.
Okay.
Zurin Orb, not good enough in my mind, not in pre-modern. There's just other things I would want to run. He talks about some that are only available if you're going multicolored routes, Blue Elemental Blast, Hydro Blast. Circle Protection Red, Rune of Protection Red. I haven't gone this route yet. I don't want to. I'm not that worried about red. Maybe I'm delusional because we don't have a lot of burn players that I've been running into around here.
Uh-huh.
But I think I have enough tools against red. I think I'd rather board in more pro-red creatures or even just stick with the few pro-red creatures I have and bring in like another worship and an enlightened tutor to find it
How much does
and just
worship
go that
cost again?
less than
Three or
$10.
two? No, mana.
Oh,
Sorry.
four.
Is
That's
it
the only
two or
problem.
three?
Four. Three colorless, one
Oh.
white, if I remember correctly.
Well, I really like warmth then. Warmth is pretty good.
Worship is three colorless, one white. I had two warmth in the sideboard. Do I have them in here? No.
No.
I had two warmth in the sideboard before either the Lions or Abolish, and I took them out. And this is why. He says it. Warmth can be very effective against burn if it lands early, but less effective late. It is almost
Mm.
useless against goblins. So it's like, it's not that great against all of the red you're going to be facing. It's mostly great against burn, and then only if you get it early enough. That's how I feel about it. So I've
I
just
see.
decided
Okay.
not to worry about it so much. Same with circle protections. Uh, that's why I'm leaning more towards locking out burn via worship. Worship can lock the game, but often result in an immediate game loss when answered. That is true. Most of the time, red doesn't answer it. It's an enchantment. Historically great against burn, it's far riskier now that some pilots have adopted naturalize. It's always been questionable against goblins. Goblins often been red-green. You are seeing burn decks kind of migrate or migrate's not the word, evolve into red-green variants of burn. They're going red-green and replacing some of their classic red spells with Call of the Herd. And then you also have the ability to put in Naturalize to deal with things like worship, to deal with things like the Cop Red. Make it a little more versatile. So warmth, that's one of the first things I started with in my sideboard. I won't say that it's bad because I never brought it in. I found myself like sideboarding and just always looking at warmth and being like, I'd just rather do something else. So then I
Mm.
thought, why do I have it in? But this is what I was worried about. Not pulling it early enough and having it just be not effective enough if I brought it in later. Crimson Acolyte. This was one that I wasn't familiar with. So I looked it up and it is pretty interesting. It's from Invasion. It's one white, one colorless. Again, another cleric. So again, Engineer Plague, because it's 1/1. Protection from red. Just pay one white. Target creature gains protection from red until end of turn. I like the fact that you don't have to tap it. So this is an option to consistently give multiple creatures in your horde pro red. Haven't gone with it though. But
Hmm.
it seems pretty good. And if I was going to add some more creatures to the main deck from the sideboard for the burn matchup, I think I would consider Crimson Acolyte. I would try those in the sideboard. I don't remember Honorable Passage or Samite Administration, so let me look those up real quick. Honorable Passage. Honorable Passage. That is. Oh, from Visions. Ah,
Oh, yeah.
this.
I have this
This.
card.
One colorless, one white, instant, prevent all damage to you or target creature from any one source. If that source is red, Honorable Passage deals to the source's controller an amount of damage equal to the amount of damage prevented.
Like an old flipperoo.
Yeah, I like it. I'm trying to think non-red decks. How often this is going to come in handy. Prevent all damage to you from target creature from any one source. I think I'd just rather have, like for a Dreadnought or for a Terravor, if I got something really big coming at me, I'd rather just have an Orim's Chant,
Yeah. I
which
don't
is
think it's
also,
worth playing if it's not an anti-red card,
it's
right?
not red. Yeah. Orim's Chant is also better against creature horde decks as opposed to just like big baddie decks. Yeah.
And I've always liked cards like this that like turn the tables on your opponent, reflect damage back to them.
And then you get to say, oh, how the turns have tabled. Samite Administration. I don't know that I don't think I
I
know
don't
this
know
one
that
at
card.
all. Samite Minestrone is from Invasion. That's cool art. He looks like he's doing the do the thing.
The Oh Num Shiva.
Om Nam Shiva, Om Nam Shiva. One colorless, one white. Instant. What's his name?
Who?
The guy who does the Om Nam Shiva, Om
I
Nam
don't
Shiva,
know.
and
I don't know
tears
if
the
you ever
heart.
hear his name.
I
He's just
thought he had a name.
spooky cultist guy. It's probably in the
Didn't we
credits of the movie.
didn't we know a guy in high school that did an impression of that? Like
That
really,
was
really good.
me.
Was it?
Yeah.
I thought it was Mr. Samuel M.
It was him too. We both did it. Yeah.
Okay. Instant, prevent all damage. His made a larger impact on me. I don't remember you doing it at all. So, instant, prevent all damage that would be dealt by a source of your choice to you this turn. Whenever damage from a black or red source is prevented this way, you gain life equal to that damage. It's fine, but yeah, I'm not running that. I read it. I'm not running it. Okay, on to the next section of the primer. From anti-red, he goes to off-white splashes. We're not talking about those right now.
Get out of here.
They're interesting. They're important. The deck that I'm playing will eventually evolve into white-red and white-blue variants. We'll get to these another time. I just don't have time in my life for multicolored decks at the moment. Then he goes on to how to pilot the deck. There are lots of, I mean, white, blue decks. Obviously great. There's lots of good options if you're trying to make a blue, white weenie. Melee Mage being like Melee Mage being Melee Mage and Hydroblast and Blue Elemental Blast being like the biggest reasons to do this.
Hmm.
Also, you got mana leaks. Anyways, but thinking about this, white black,
I was
just
gonna
because I'll
mention
do it.
duress before. That would be an easy thing to splash into a
I
white
know,
weenie deck, and you could take like removal out of their hand that you
I
don't want to
know.
hit your Imperial Armor creature.
The biggest issues I'm having right now playing white weenie are the devastating combo decks. The
Okay.
combo decks that once they get up to like 4 mana or something, you're screwed and or stifle not.
Yeah.
Being able to duress cabal therapy, pull something key from
Yeah.
their hand, a big.
It
But
is.
so many of the white weenies are too white. They're white. So now you're in a situation like where I want to play white land as my first land drop, but then if you want to
Yeah.
duress, you also want to play swamp as your first land drop. So there's a I'm trying to think of how I want to build that mana base. I got to think about that. Anyways, we're not talking about that right now.
Okay.
Piloting the deck strategy in the author's words. White Weenie is typically an aggro prison deck. Though filled with cheap creatures, it is not capable of the blistering fast starts other colors can manage. That's what I'm experiencing too. Mine's a little bit faster than most if I have the Imperial Armor out. And that was the intention. I was trying to build it faster than usual White Weenie deck, but it's still not quite as fast as I need it to be in some cases. Instead, it relies on higher card quality, card synergies, and disruption to make its comparatively slower offense sufficiently threatening. Its rule will vary by matchup and may also change over the course of a given game, borrowing from the language of Finding the Three Gears of Modern Burn. This is an article written by Mike Flores. Its gears are 1. Beatdown, where the deck just attempts to deal damage as fast as it can, throwing in disruption where it may. This is the gear that I wanted to operate in most of the time with Empyrial White Weenie. 1 drop, 2 drop, ideally at least one of those drops has Shadow, and then turn 3 Imperial Armor. You got something much bigger than expected coming at their face turn 3. That's the primary gear I was hoping to operate in. Gear 2 he calls Sword and Shield, in which an evasive creature chips away while the deck's other creatures in disruption provide defense and buy time. This is the second gear that I had in mind. I wasn't thinking in terms of these gears, but this is exactly how I was building the deck. Try to hit them hard and fast with Imperial Armor. If that doesn't work, if I either don't draw Imperial Armor or my armored creature eats removal, this is the second gear I was hoping to operate in. I disrupt and defend with things like Core Haven, Disenchant, Swords to Plowshares, Whip Quarter, Mother of Runes, while one smaller, maybe 2-powered shadow creature I have chips away, chips away. Sword and Shield out, chips away. Gear 3, Card Superiority, where you identify a key card or collection of cards that your opponents cannot defeat and tailor your strategy to assembling those key cards. This is a gear that I'm more rarely in, but this is the strategy that I had in mind for burn decks or decks with only red-based creature removal, where I work to assemble the Worship Crow-Red creature combo. So I wasn't really thinking about these gears necessarily, but this is exactly how, like what I had in mind when I was building the deck. Straight up aggro plan, a more mid-range gear 2 sword and shield plan, and then a card superiority plan against certain types of decks. So that's the general strategy, the different gears you
Okay.
can follow. He talks about mulligans. I used to never mulligan, Alex. I'm on the record on this podcast saying I never mulligan. Just like I said, I never buy foils, but I bought a foil. Did I buy a foil? I just bought a foil, right? We just had
Yeah,
an episode. I was like,
yeah, yeah.
what foil
You're
did I
showing a
buy?
foil.
What did I buy?
I don't know, Exalted Angel?
No, I talked about how I was probably going to buy that, but I haven't bought it yet. But I had a foil, right? And I was like,
Yeah,
this
someone sent you
foil,
one or something.
something happened. Anyways, now I'm not totally a non-foiler. I'm a occasional foiler. I used to be a never mulliganer, you know what I'm saying? Now I'm a mulliganer. I'm mulligan. I'm playing in
It's
serious
scary to
tournaments,
mulligan.
people. I'm meeting the Retromancers. They're very serious. They're coming at me with replenishes, with stifle knots, with terravores. I'm like, I got a mulligan. It's sink or swim out here, people. Sometimes you got a mulligan. Now I mulligan. When do I mulligan? I say to myself, can I cast a 1 and a 2 drop or a 1 and or 2 drop and an Imperial Armor? If so, I keep. So do I have a 1 drop, preferably with Shadow and an Imperial Armor? Or do I have a 1 and a 2 drop? Or do I have a 1 and a 2 drop and Imperial Armor? If I do, I keep. After sideboarding, I may prioritize removal. So like depending on what my matchup is. Depending on the matchup. If it's a matchup where I think I'm going to need a swords or a disenchant turn 1 or turn 2, then I'll take that into account when I mulligan. But I'm mulliganing sometimes now. I used to be a never mulliganer. Tactics. He lists many. He lists 10. Number 2 and number 3 are the most important for me to keep in mind at this point, I think. Two is when in doubt, prioritize disruption. There are only a few decks you can beat by raw speed. Disruption is your strength. That's what I'm saying, like, especially after sideboarding and I know what deck I'm playing against. When I decide whether or not I should mulligan, I'm prioritizing removal. Do I have my STP? Do I have a disenchant? Do I have an aura of silence? These are often things that I need in order to disrupt my opponent's deck for me to have a chance. Three, prioritize evasion. Gear two, sword and shield doesn't fully open until you have it. So prioritize invasion. I want shadow on the board. I want some shadow. I have a lot of shadow in my deck. So I should have some shadow in my opening hand. Anyways, those are the two tactics that, when I read his list, those are the two that I'm thinking about most often when I'm playing my current deck. And then he ends this primer with a really great write-up on some of the different matchups you're most likely to face. And he has some tips on how to deal with some of the more common matchups, some of the potentially more problematic matchups with the White Weenie. I'm not going to go into all of them, but I'm just going to briefly discuss some of them. Burn. As I said, I've not run into burn often locally. I haven't faced it with this particular deck actually at any of the meetups. My primary strategy is to get a pro red creature on a worship on the board. From the author, Gary Roth says, after sideboarding, you may have access to a variety of anti-red cards, some of which may be nearly unbeatable. To make room, you can cut less efficient or impactful creatures like Soltari Monk, Whipcorder, and spells like Cataclysm, Parallax Wave. So the sideboard is key here. You should have tools to deal with burn in your sideboard, whether it's more pro-red or even graveyard hate to eliminate the Lavamancer fuel. So that's what I'm doing. That's exactly what I'm doing. Like, I'm bringing in another worship, thinking about putting an Enlightened Tutor, bringing that in from the sideboard, tell me get my worship, taking out Whipcorder and Monks, which just aren't as handy and aren't as needed against burn. And then I'm also considering bringing in some graveyard hate, because there you eliminate the Lavamancer fuel, and you can also keep the Barbarian Ring offline.
Ah, I never think about, yeah, stopping graveyard as a way, because of Lavamancer.
Lavamancer's so good, and if you
Yeah.
can shut that down, that's
I was thinking about it in terms
a
of
lot of
black. Yeah.
damage. Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm going with burn at the moment. Goblins. I have not faced this yet with the White Weenie. I think I'm weak against goblins. From the author. In here, he says, you first need to be prepared to answer an early goblin lackey attack. Note that goblins can often remove a 1 toughness blocker. My 1 drops are Mom, which she doesn't get bolted right away. I could tap to give pro red, block. And Soltari Foot Soldier, which can't block because it has shadow. So like I'm wide open to, and I have 4 swords, but I'm fairly vulnerable to lackey, somewhat vulnerable to lackey. After this, you will likely enter a Gear 2 Sword and Shield game in which you will leverage your larger first strike or protection from red creatures for combat damage. If I can make it to turn 2, I can drop a Silver Knight or something. You then need to close before you're overwhelmed by the power of Goblin Ringleader and or Siege Gang Commander. Mana denial will be present on both sides. For goblins, it's a tool to slow down. You often slow you down while they develop. What is that? What I'm reading that incorrectly. For goblins, it's a tool to slow down your often while they develop. Am I reading that incorrectly? No, it's just a little typo. There we go. For you, it helps delay their heavy hitters and give you time to close. After sideboarding, you may have access to a variety of anti-red cards, mass removal such as Cataclysm. Cataclysm comes in handy against goblins, I can see. I think I'll board that in. I should have boarded it in against the Rock, which I didn't, but I should have. I had Shadow, so his walls weren't as problematic for me. Wall of Roots, Wall of Blossoms. But then when he starts doing things where he gets them to the graveyard and bringing them back, then he's refilling the mana on the roots that he can use for other things, drawing cards from the blossoms. Uh, Deranged Hermit was coming out. You got the Hermit, you got your Squirrel Herald to deal with. horde to deal with. Cataclysm, helps with all that stuff. Cataclysm will help with go wide decks, essentially, is what I'm saying. Goblins is one of those decks that'll help against. Mass removal such as Cataclysm, Wrath of God, Engineered Plague, Pyroclasm, or Earthquake will be even more impactful. To make room, cut your artifact and enchantment removal, a rare case where it is useless, and then your least efficient are combat effective creatures. So I'm not sure what to do with goblins at the moment exactly. I could slow them down with Orm's Chant and go Cataclysm. And then try to get this Worship pro-red combo on the board, but Goblins often runs Naturalize. So it's not as useful as it is against Burn. But I think Goblins might be a bet, just a tough matchup for me. Stifle Knot. The author says, the menace of the format, Stifle Knot knows no fear except perhaps White Weenie. That's what I thought, maybe. I thought maybe I could build a deck that would be like pretty resistant to Stifle Knot. I got my ass handed to me when I played Stifle Knot. The deck focused on generating a single massive artifact creature is faced with Swords to Plowshares and Disenchant, or Seal of Cleansing, at a minimum, plus some mixture of Meddling Mage, Whip Quarter, Parallax Wave, and Worship, all complemented by fast offense. I had fast offense. I had Swords. I had Disenchant. I had a Whip Quarter. I had Core Haven. I got my ass handed to me. So my experience with Stifle Knot is limited so far, but this is like my current experience is I felt like the tools that I had should be able to deal with one big single creature, but I had a 2-turn clock. You have a 2-turn clock when the Stifle Knot hits, and it was really hard to deal with when they have so much counter magic. Because I would have a hand with like a Swords to Plowshare, a Disenchant, and maybe a third thing, and I'd be like, I'm good. Comes to my turn, I Swords, they pitch some spells, misdirection, kill one of my creatures. And I'm like, fuck. And then it goes to their turn and they attack. And then I go Disenchant. And then they're like, daze. And I'm like, fuck. Down 12. And then, it happens so fast. It happens so fast, Alex. I have PTSD now. It happens so fast. So I feel like I need to develop my sideboard tools to better deal with Stifle Knot. He says in the Stifle Knot section, you'll want to bring in relevant creature and artifact removal plus interaction like discard and counter magic if you have it. So this is where the white-blue weenie, the white-black weenie, stronger against Stifle Knot than the mono-white. Your worst cards are those that are mana intensive and don't answer a threat. Mana Denial is also weak against the Lean Gush deck, and Enlightened Tutor is generally weak against counter magic and Vision Charm. So maybe I bring in more Aura of Silence. Maybe I bring in Abolish. I'm hoping Abolish can maybe strengthen up my matchup against Stifle Knot along with Orm's Chant. Sometimes if I can just make the game last 2 or 3 more turns, I think I could win it if I got Shadow on the board. And then he goes on to the Rock. He highlights the Rock matchup. Here he says, you usually want to do as much damage as you can early before they stabilize with green blockers and Pernicious Deed. If they do stabilize, their creatures often overclass yours, and the value generated by recurring Nightmare and Genesis can cause the game to slip away quickly. This is exactly what happened to me when I faced Survivor Rock. It was going really well. Get Shadow on the board, get Imperial Armor on the board, I'm chipping through. They just got some walls. They're not doing anything to me. I'm attacking for 2, 4, 6 each turn. Get him down to well under 10. And then it slips away. Then Survival Squee, Genesis, Toolbox creatures take over the board. They run me over. He starts picking off the things that I have, and then he starts coming at me with big creatures. After sideboarding, Engineer Plague destroyed me. So I want more enchantment removal, and I want to attack their graveyard to eliminate Genesis, eliminate Squee. Another Angel might also be nice. I'm considering a second Imperial Angel in the sideboard, which is very helpful combating decks like the Rock that tend to have bigger creatures. From the author, he says, in this case, that case being when the Rock starts to overwhelm you. Your only hope is to figure out how to sneak through enough damage before you're overwhelmed. I tried. I tried my best. Or have a card in your deck that can overwhelm them instead. Exalted Angel is a great candidate. For this reason, it could be Gear 1 Beatdown or Gear 3 Card Superiority game. I was actually thinking Gear 2. Keep chipping away while focusing on disruption, particularly disrupting their enchantments and their graveyard. I think maybe I can get there if I can sideboard in more enchant removal and chew up those things in their graveyard that they're either bringing back or using to bring creatures back.
I wonder if they say one or three because they're like the Rock's a good mid-range deck and you don't want to compete with it doing its own thing.
I think I can, Alex. I think I can go toe to toe if I chomp up that graveyard.
Yeah.
I I don't know I'm not nearly as experienced with Premodern White Weenie as Gary Roth, but I think I can.
Hell,
Replenish. I'm skipping elves.
good, Skip.
I haven't run into elves, although elves was the winner uh, of the
Oh
first
yeah.
Retromancer monthly Swiss at the Warp Gate. I forgot to mention it's at the Warp Gate in Columbus, Ohio. If anybody listening to this is in Columbus, Ohio, I think we're gonna be doing that every month now at the Warp Gate. Elves won, by the way. That's all I wanted to say about that. Talks about land still and other blue-white control. We're gonna skip that for now. We're gonna skip Hermit Feb. Haven't run into Hermit Feb. Replenish combo. From the author, Replenish combo is a hard matchup for White Weenie. It aims to assemble Parallax Wave and Opalescence to lock out all opposing creatures and enchantments, and then add Parallax Tide to lock out opposing lands as well. Those are all the things you need, man. Like, I need lands, I need creatures and enchantments. What the fuck? What kind of magic is this? They can do this piecemeal or all at once by loading the graveyard using Attunement, Frantic Search, and/or Fact and Fiction, and then resolving Replenish. Once in place, interaction becomes difficult. See how to break the standing wave. Alex, we're going to learn about Replenish combo. I'm going to study how to break the standing wave. I'm going to beat Replenish combo with my White Weenie. I will say, yes, this was a terrible matchup for me. I only played against it once. I hated every moment of it.
I don't like playing against this.
Felt like my only option was to outrun it, but I don't see how to outrun it because they're going to swords my
Yeah.
Imperial Armored creature or just counterspell the Imperial Armor.
Yeah. It seems like a really ironclad
It's
type of
really
deck to
hard,
me. It's frustrating to play against.
really hard. From the author, your plan is Gear 1 Beatdown, backed by as much disruption as you can muster. I tried. He even says, unfortunately, they usually get there before you do. They did. If you can reach Armageddon, though, you're often in good shape. I'm thinking one option is again to attack the graveyard more aggressively. 4 main board Phyrexian Furnaces. Eat up the graveyard. Eat it up. Just keep chomping. I don't even know. I don't know what to do. Maybe Armageddon? Uh, I do think I'm in a much better place if they can't reach 4 mana. So if they can get maybe 4 mana out and they don't have the combo yet, or just Armageddon when they have 3 mana out, if I can do that, if I'm on the play. That sucks though, because then you're losing more land than they are to the Geddon. I don't know. We're going to revisit this one. We're going to start with a deep dive into Parallax Replenish. I need to learn more about how it's piloted. I will read this, how to break the standing wave, and we'll come back stronger than ever against Replenish combo. Ponza Oath. I think I'm in a decent place against this deck because I have ways to deal with a single big creature. I have ways to attack the graveyard and eat up those lands to shrink that Terravore. And they don't have counter magic to counter my disruption. That's biggest problems I run into are getting something that I really need to get through countered. That's why I hate blue mages. That's why I hate blue spells. I hate them. I used to be one of them back in my younger days, but I've matured. I've grown up. Now all I do is turn creatures sideways. And I got these people out there trying to prevent me all the time from turning my creatures sideways. He says Ponza Oath is a surprisingly straightforward matchup for White Weenie, but depends heavily on the build. White Weenie builds mostly with enough, basic plains and wastelands can shrug off a surprising amount of thermokarst. This is true. The green-white version with only STP can often be overwhelmed by the green-red version with pyroclasms, often cannot answer a Soltari Priest at all, and struggles with handling pump spells. This is true. I played the 5-color one, and he killed my Soltari Priest with a pyroclasm because we both temporarily forgot that that doesn't work, actually. But I still won the game. So I
Huh.
still won the game. I got my pro red creature pyroclasm because neither one of us were paying attention. We were both totally sober, just not thinking. And I still won the game. Oath of Druids producing a large Terravor can be scary, but the deck has enchantment removal. That is true. And True Believer to defend against Oath. That wasn't true in this case, but I played an Oathless Terravor deck. And a single natural Terravor is often a thing the White Weenie deck can naturally handle. That's the key here. I have Whip Quarters, I had Core Haven, I have STPs, I have some Graveyard Hate to shrink it and eat up the lands. I can also bring in Cataclysm from the sideboard if I need to, although that's not the greatest against. That actually probably really sucks against Paw's Oath. So, this is the Imperial Armor White Weenie as it started. That was at least some of Gary Roth's primer on Premodern White Weenie. This is now the new variant that I'm running. 23 creatures still, Alex. Very similar. 1 Exalted Angel, 4 Mother of Runes, 3 Silver Knights, 4 Monks, 4 Soltari Priests, 3 Whip Quarters. You will now see 4 Lions in the main board. I'm doing this to make my deck less susceptible to Engineered Plague. An Engineered Plague to Soltari means my 1-drop Foot Soldiers and 8 of my 2-drop Soltaris, the Monks and the Priests, are all nullified by Engineered Plagues. At least I have a 1-drop option in the form of Lions if they say Soltari. So, still not great. I still don't want people playing Engineered Plague against me. But now I have Soltaris, I have Clerics, I have Humans, I have an Angel, I have a Rebel Soldier, and I have a Lion. So it's no longer blanking 12 cards, which is an improvement. I took out Battle Screech. My sorcery now, instead of 1 Battle Screech, is 1 Armageddon. Makes me a little stronger, I think, against mana-hungry control decks.
I think
Maybe
it's a
makes
good
me...
trade.
I think it's a good trade, too. Anything that needs to operate on more than 4 mana, I'm getting in that ass. Furnace and Sabos in the main deck. I like it. Furnace comes in handy all the time. Can replace itself. Sabos Web draws a card. It has Sabo in the web. It has Gerard. It has Hannah. It has Volrath. It has Kara Critchlow art. It has a $10.43 current price tag. They're low casting costs. They draw a card that come in handy in a surprisingly high number of matchups. That's what I said. And then I have Anthems in the main and in the sideboard. This is for Engineered Plague. And if I need to battle larger creatures. I'm going Glorious Anthem. All creatures I control get +1/+1 for 3 mana. The sideboard is now 1 Abolish, 1 Aura of Silence, 2 Cataclysms, 2 Disenchant. So Cataclysms and Disenchant stayed. Abolish stayed. I'm bringing in another Aura of Science, taking out the Abeyance, putting in another Aura of Silence. Yes, it's 3 mana, but I think it's just better against a lot of decks. A lot of the enchantment and artifact decks that are very powerful. It slows them down, hopefully enough for me to be able to do what I need to do. I brought in 1 Enlightened Tutor, and I moved the Worship to the sideboard. This is strictly for burn matchups. And then I have a Tormod's Crypt and a second Furnace in the sideboard because maybe this is just my limited experience, but like being able to chew up their graveyard is come in handy way more often than I expected. I brought this version to the Wednesday night meetup recently, last week. This is where we just all sit around and we just all pull out some decks and play. It's not a Swiss. It's not our tournament. There's some more brewing that happens there. I lost 0-2 to Parallax Replenish. It was the first time I played White Weenie against Parallax Replenish. That felt bad. I hated it, Alex. I hated that deck. That's now the deck that I hate the most, and I want to crush it. I won 2-0 versus Red Green Shroud. It was just like a brew somebody brought for fun. Uh, like a red green beats deck, but all the creatures were green shroud creatures. So Blurred Mongoose, Blastoderm, Jolreal Centaur. I
Mm.
did try to use my Core Haven on the Blastoderm, and he was like, doofus, you can't target it. And I was like, that's right. Fuck, I hate you, Core Haven. So I took him out. I currently just run 23 planes. That's what I'm doing now.
All right.
We'll see. Maybe next week I'll wish I had Core Havens. But I won that game. That worked out. I won that match 2-0. Red Green Shroud wasn't that difficult. I was able to outrun it, and the Angel was the star there. I don't know how game 2 would have went if I didn't get the Angel out, but I did. Again, makes me wonder if I should sideboard a second Angel. Oh, no, sorry. I think it was game 1 that the Angel won me. Game 2, Worship won it. Worship and Pro Red. Because all of his creature removal was red. It was red damage based. So I got my Sultari Priest and I got Worship out, and then the game it was a lock essentially. And then game 3, I lost the match 1-2 against White Green Birds, Alex. I said, "Oh, this is pretty cool." I said, "My buddy's working on a bird deck, but I think it's white bluebirds. Am I right about that?"
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Oh, I'd like to see that list because all the bluebirds are terrible. I wonder what the hell he's running." I'm like, "I
It's
don't know
mostly
yet."
white.
Mostly white. And I said, "I don't know. He might not be running bluebirds. It might just be for the Seaside Airy or Seaside Haven or whatever it's called. There's a land I know that lets you draw a card when you
Yes.
sack a bird.
Seaside Haven.
Seaside Haven. Are you playing that?"
Uh-huh.
Okay.
My birds, the only major bluebird I have is Stormscape Familiar, which makes my white
Ah,
spells cost one less to play.
that's actually a good one. So he's like, there's no good blue birds. That's actually a good one.
And then I only have one of these in because there's a card called Keeper of the Nine Gales.
He
Uh,
might have mentioned that one as the only good one he could think of.
it's 3 mana. It's a 1/2 flyer, and you tap it and tap two other untapped birds you control to return a permanent to its owner's hand.
Yes. I believe he
So
did mention it
it
actually.
has some neat utility, but like the rest of my deck is, I don't know, supposed to be a little more about like fast pumpable birds, so it's not
Okay.
really in theme. I just have one of them in because I thought it might be fun.
Yeah. I lost to birds 1-2. He was like, "Oh, you're playing real White Weenie." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm playing a goopy bird brew." It was actually pretty good. I mean, it beat me. Uh,
I kind
it's
of
kind
want
of
to
hard.
try that now just because Birds of Paradise. What did he have besides Birds of Paradise?
He had Birds of Paradise.
I mean, you put Rancors in there, obviously.
I think he did have Rancor. I think that might have been it actually. It was
I
it was
feel like that's all you need.
yeah, it was primarily it was primarily white birds. And he had a black land. There's that land where you can sacrifice a creature and generate 2 black mana. But he didn't have any black spells. It was just to sacrifice birds on occasion because he was running that spell.
Yeah, the Ares spell.
The Airy, yeah. And the one game that I won was the game that I was able to get rid of the Airy as soon as possible.
It's
But
Soul
when,
Catcher's Ares.
yes, but when Soul Catcher's Airy was there, it's like, anytime I STP'd a bird, anytime I got a bird off the board, it just made all those other birds stronger. I didn't have, this is actually a case where maybe Core Havens would have benefited me a lot more. But he was able to make his birds. So I had evasion and he had evasion, but I couldn't get a huge shadow creature through. They all I didn't have a big buffed Imperial Armored shadow creature. I did get Imperial Armor out. No, there was one game in particular where I had Imperial Armor and I was like, I just want to Imperial Armor the shadow creature up and just crush him. But he had Lieutenant Kirtar,
Uh-huh.
and it took me a while to deal with that guy. No, no, he slowed me down enough. I didn't want to Imperial Armor in an attack with the Shadow because he just would have removed him with Lieutenant Kirtar.
Okay.
So I had to keep chipping away for two. And he was just letting it happen. And he was playing birds, and his birds were getting bigger. And then eventually he was like, okay, I don't want to lose any more life. Let me snatch that creature with Kirtar. But he slowed me down enough that by the time he did that, and I could have Imperial Armored a different shadow creature, he already had enough and big enough birds that next turn he attacked me for lethal. He had, evasion in the form of flying. I couldn't do anything about it. I was tapping one of them down with one of my whip quarters each turn, but he outran me. He outran
Mhm.
me. Anyways, I was trying to pull up all the birds to give you an idea of what was in the deck. I selected all of these colors, or exactly these colors accidentally. So the birds he was running were Birds of Paradise, Commander Isha.
Mhm.
This actually was problematic for me too because I didn't have enough. I didn't have enough shadow on the board to push through more than really like 2 points of damage each turn. But I had a whip quarter and I had some tutus that I could have been attacking with. But my tutus would have died to Commander Isha, and I couldn't tap Commander Isha to let them get through because she has pro creatures. So I couldn't target her with the whip quarter's ability. I'm saying she. I don't know that Isha is actually a she, but whatever. You know what I'm saying? So Commander Isha was actually a pain. It was a
Mhm.
pain. Uh, Commander Isha and Lieutenant Kutar on the board at the same time. These two were extremely problematic for me during the game. So he ran Birds
They're
of
both pretty
Paradise.
fairly priced cards, casting cost wise.
Yeah, no, they're not bad at all. He ran Birds of Paradise. He ran Commander
I've never seen
Isha.
that Darba before. That's interesting.
Yeah. He ran Lieutenant Kirtar, and he ran Suntail Hawk. I think this was his only vanilla one drop. And then he ran Soul Catcher.
Uh-huh.
Flying. Whenever a creature with flying dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Soul Catcher. And he ran. There was one that came out like 3/3. Where's the 3/3 one? There was a bird that it was either probably two casting cost, and it was consistently 3/3, like for two with
Hmm.
flying.
I don't have that in my deck.
And why can't I find it? Because it was good. That's weird. The show will end, people, once I find what this bird is.
Sure, it was like 2 mana.
Yeah. Wingbeat Warrior, Wild Esthir. He had Welkin Hawk too, because if this is put into a
Yeah, I
graveyard from
have
play, you
that.
can search. So this is good. With the airy, what's it called? What's the
Yeah,
enchantment?
the Soul Catcher's Airy.
Soul Catcher's Airy.
Yeah, nice synergy.
Yeah. So Soul Catcher's Airy, every time a bird goes to the graveyard, all your birds get +1/+1. So when the Welkin Hawk goes to the graveyard, all your birds get +1/+1, plus you get to fetch up another bird. Soul Catcher gets bigger too. Every time a bird dies, it gets +1/+1.
We better save some of
Plus,
this for Birds episode.
Plus, if the Aries out, it gets +2/+2. Okay. We'll do the birds episode soon. You want to do a birds episode soon? We did a
Sure.
bird soldier episode. We did bird
Have
soldiers
we
before
done
we did
birds?
birds.
Yeah, we did.
We got to do birds. We've done soldiers, bird soldiers. Now we got to do birds. Premodern
Okay.
birds. I got to ask. The kid's name was Max. I got to ask Max for his deck list.
Maybe it's not. Is it not a bird?
It was a bird though, Alex. But I just searched all birds. And I saw it this morning when I did this same damn thing. Let me put bird in the text. Let me put bird. And then let me do pre-modern. And let me do search. Battle Screech. So he ran Battle Screech too. I also didn't know if you ran this potentially in your
I
big
have
deck, but
one in right now, and I can't decide if I want to keep it because like it has the potential to draw you a lot of cards.
now I'm seeing that it's a sorcery and I'm going to say take it out.
Yeah, but then I'm like, part of the whole theme of my deck is that many of my birds will be dying. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll be ending up with just like two big birds at some point, and I don't really want to spend four to draw two, and I can
Yeah.
just put something else in instead.
Yeah, get rid of it. Soul Catcher's Area, one colorless, one white. Whenever a bird is put into your graveyard from play, put a feather counter on Soul Catcher's Area. All birds get +1/+1 for each feather counter on Soul Catcher's Area. Yeah, so I wasn't even describing this properly. It's not that every time a bird goes to the graveyard, your birds get +1/+1.
Hmm.
Uh, it's for however many feather counters are on this, your birds get
Yeah.
plus
How many
X plus
birds
X,
have
where
died
X equals the number of
total?
feather counters. So, like, if 3 birds die before you bring a bird into play, when you bring that bird into play, it'll come in with +3/+3. They don't even have to have been in play, when that happened
Right.
to
Yeah.
like receive the counter at that point.
Yeah. You bring them. So it helps your low, your one drops and stuff late in the game be
Yeah.
extra powerful.
Okay. Type bird.
I'm telling you, there's some reason now it's like not a bird or something that you're thinking of. It's like a
But then I also just searched for pre-modern with just bird in the text.
hmm,
Here it is. I found it. I almost skipped past it. Cloud Reach Cavalry. It isn't a bird. It just says soldier,
okay.
but it has bird in the text. One colorless, one white.
Oh,
Yeah. Yes, Alex. This is why you.
that wow. No,
Yeah.
and that's why I never found it while I was researching this bird deck.
And it's a good. It doesn't have flying. No, that's not true. It can't have flying. It's a good card.
Yeah, I would put that in because
It's
yeah,
just
right now
two
I
mana.
have one tethered griffin in, and we've talked about that before about how, it doesn't work unless you have enchantments. And
Yeah.
I have some in here, but maybe that would be a better pick for me.
One colorless, one white, 1/1. Cloud Reach Cavalry gets +2/+2 and flying as long as you control a bird. So this can be turn 2, 2 drop, 3/3 flyer. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you for notifying me
You're welcome.
in our impromptu bird segment.
You're welcome. Anywho, that's it. This
That's
is
it.
my this is my updated list. Major innovations are I removed my Soltari 1 drops, replaced them with Savannah Alliance. So Engineered Plague still fucking sucks. Ruins my day, pisses me off when it comes out.
Maybe I should start using Engineered Plague more.
But at least it's not blanking 12 fucking cards all at once in my deck. Excuse my language. Second major innovation for Phyrexian Furnace and Sable's Web main deck. Everybody gonna be doing it. And then I've added some Anthem spells and put more Graveyard Hate and enchantment removal in the sideboard. Am I stronger against black white control? Maybe. Am I stronger against the rock? Maybe. Do I lose to birds? Yes. But feel like maybe that wouldn't happen all the time. I think I have a pretty good chance against birds. Just might have made some mistakes. And that's it, Alex. Happy Easter to you. Happy Easter to all of our listeners. Happy Easter to whoever made it this far. Are you still listening? That's crazy. Why would you keep listening to this? I felt like
It
this
is
episode was
crazy.
very disjointed. Maybe you're sleeping. Alex, say something crazy right now into their ears. They have nightmares. Is there anything that you would like to say to the listeners before we go, Alex? Before we head out?
I don't think so. Although in my life of magic this week, I uh, got my sister to play her first game of Magic with the Bloomborough starter decks that I bought.
That's excellent.
And she enjoyed it. And my brother-in-law started looking too. So I think I
This
got him.
is this is good news, Alex. Get them hooked. They're both gainfully employed. You have two incomes that they could start putting towards Magic the Gathering cards. Get them interested in pre-modern, get them interested in old school, and then borrow some cards for them. If you get them interested in Magic and get them buying Magic cards, it
I
essentially
can just borrow
increases
moxes from
your
them.
collection. Exactly. So this is a very good plan. I support it. Tell them they have children. Tell them, listen.
It's an investment in their children's future.
Exactly. Say, don't worry about, starting a stock portfolio to pay for their college in the future. Invest in cardboard. Show them the price lists from Inquest magazines and well, Scry was the other one, right? From
Uh,
back in the day and be like, if you had put this much money into Power 9 instead of the S&P 500, draw the lines, and then at the end just be like, if this trend continues, you know what I'm saying?
and
Eh,
the FAFSA isn't going to ask you about your collectible cardboard when they want to know about your assets when you're applying for student aid, right?
yeah, they don't, right? They don't. That's true. Put all your money in a cardboard and be like, I got no net worth, buddy.
They
I
probably
need
ask
some
you generically about value of other collectible assets or something, but
taxes too. Like tax time just happened. I was filling out my taxes and I was kind of pissed because it's like all this fucking shit that we didn't have to worry about previously when it came to like selling stuff and buying stuff online. It was like, have you purchased anything online that you haven't had to pay state taxes for? And I was like,
yeah,
luckily there was no, because I'm just buying from sites where they charge me the state tax. But that doesn't always happen. I remember back in the day, like I've had an eBay account for, I don't know for how long. I was a teenager when I set it up. For 20 plus years. I probably had an eBay account. And when I first started selling stuff on eBay, it was for a long time. There wasn't anywhere uh, to list that on your taxes,
yeah.
right? So it was like fucking free money. Now they want to know how much I made from selling online, so they can get the taxes from me now if I haven't paid them already. And I'm thinking, what if I just do like, what if I just sell to like people not through a site and you just exchange the money on Venmo and stuff? Then they'll track it. They can still track it, Alex.
Mhm.
There's no way for me to get out of it. Anyways, I don't want to get out of taxes. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I do pay my taxes. I'm libbed up. I'm pro taxes. I want everybody taxed more. I want billionaires taxed 90%, maybe 95.
They used to.
Should I know? I know. We should make America great again. Tax billionaires 92%. Or start some fucking libraries, you pieces of shit. At least Carnegie. How many libraries did Carnegie start? How many institutions did they fund?
Yeah, donate some more land to national parks, right? Isn't
You
that
guys
what
are
you're supposed to do when you're a billionaire is
if you're going to
donate to more
destroy the
national
NIH, if
parks?
you're going to destroy the CDC, step in like Rockefeller. Where's your Rockefeller University to promote, research in the basic sciences and the biomedical sciences and medicine, Step up. Step up, free market. Come on. Because all I know about like private industry and the free market and biomedical sciences, they never want to pay for R&D. They take the things that were developed in the research laboratories and universities and paid for from public funds, and then once it's working well enough that they think they can make a product out of it and monetize it, then it comes to the. But I mean, the companies don't want to put in the money for the basic R&D. They don't want to do it.
Never do.
Well, we need to. I mean, anyways. Might get mad. I'm gonna get fired up, Alex. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please leave us a 5-star review. Please click that TCG player link. Do you have Glorious Anthems?
No.
If not, I'm gonna pick them up. This is a beautiful card with a beautiful effect, beautiful Kev Walker art,
And a rare.
and a rare from Urza's Saga. Pick some up from TCG player. Click that link. Talk to you later. What are we gonna talk about next? We're
Is
not.
that it
It's
at the end?
no, not yet.
Oh, we're still going. Okay.
Yeah, we're still going. It's not going to be 4 weeks next time. I'm going to write some show notes sooner. Next time, it's not going to take me 4 weeks. I think I want to talk about the best gold. I think I want to have a discussion about the best gold cards in pre-modern because I found an article.
Okay.
I want to whittle it down and have a discussion about what we think are the best gold cards in the pre-modern card pool. And then after that, we got an elves episode we're working on. Alex is working on it. I'm gonna crack that whip. I'm a bit. Come on, buddy.
96 elves.
96. That's it.
Yep.
March, April. That means you're working on it already. That's good. You at least look to see how many elves.
Yep.
When did I say May? Let's say May or June. Maybe June.
You said May.
Okay, we can do June. Maybe May or June. We got a episode coming up on gold cards, pre-modern. We maybe have an episode coming up on birds. We did the soldiers. We did the bird soldiers. No, we should have gone birds, then soldiers, then bird soldiers. But oh well. Too late. We fucked up.
They can watch the episodes in whatever order they want.
That is true, actually.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. When we do the bird episode, we could be like, turn this off right fucking now.
Yeah, stop it.
Go back to no, actually. I just said we should have done birds and soldiers, then bird soldiers. If they're listening to the bird episode, I'll be like, this is perfect. You're starting exactly where we should have started. Listen to this whole episode and then go back to episode whatever for the soldiers. And then the bird soldier episode. Okay, that's it. I got a ham to eat. I'll talk to you later.
Good luck.
I ain't gonna do this anymore. That's all for me. Goodbye.